Chapter 50-33. After flying for half an hour, the number of bones in the blood sea decreased, and the wind and waves calmed down a little. Du Peng's heart was finally at ease. He gratefully looked at Zhang Jie in front of him. He knew in his heart that although this half an hour had been frightening but not dangerous, it was all thanks to Zhang Jie's strength. Zhang Jie seemed to know this blood sea like the back of his hand. Many times, before danger appeared, Zhang Jie immediately transmitted to Du Peng, letting Du Peng prepare early, so that they could avoid danger. If it weren't for Zhang Jie, this bone bird would have been defeated by the blood waves as soon as it fell into the space of the blood sea. However, Du Peng was somewhat inexplicably puzzled. That's not right. Zhang Jie is an angel of the holy light realm. Even if she was possessed, how could she be so familiar with the nether blood sea? Not to mention Du Peng, Xiaohua was also extremely puzzled. Among the many dangers the bone bird encountered, there were many that even Xiaohua couldn't see through. Xiaohua couldn't imagine how Zhang Jie could see through them. However, seeing that the wind and waves were calming down, Xiaohua reminded Zhang Jie, "Don't be careless. According to the time, this is the time when the moon tear disappears in the Wuming mountain range, and the sacrificial night is over. The bloodline power of the soul cultivator is beginning to weaken, and the suppression power of this array is about to become stronger." "Do I need you to tell me that?" Zhang Jie sneered and said. "I'm not as familiar with the sealing array of the Buddha kingdom as you are." Hearing this, Xiaohua was stunned and asked curiously, What did you say? This is the sealing array of the Buddha kingdom?" While Xiaohua was in a daze, the world suddenly calmed down. The bones in the blood sea disappeared, the souls died, and the previous rolling waves strangely calmed down. Of course, this calm only lasted for a moment. Various wind sounds were produced one after another. In the blood sea, strange figures condensed one after another, like men and women, like men and beasts. Could it be that they were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws? They flew out fiercely. The man was extremely ugly and fierce. The woman was extremely beautiful and charming. The beast was a flying dragon in the sky. The beast was a great rock spreading its wings. It was extremely fierce. Not only that, but the flying dragon, the great Peng, the male Azura, and the female Rakshasa actually broke free from the sea of blood and rushed towards Xiaohua and the others, instantly trapping the flying bone birds. Damn it. Seeing this situation, Xiaohua couldn't help but groan and shout, "Damn it. This was the Buddhist kingdom's sea of bitterness. It wasn't a soul cultivator's netherworld blood sea. This Xiao was mistaken from the start." Just as Xiaohua's groan fell, swish. In the dark sky, light suddenly shone brightly, and rays of Buddhist light that were as heavy as mountains tore apart the layers of dark clouds. At this moment, Xiaohua could clearly see that the dark clouds were blood-colored clouds. These clouds were in the shape of a full moon, exactly the same as moon tear. Needless to say, the power of moon tear and the blessing of Hutu had temporarily blocked the Buddhist formations sealing the Wuming mountain range and the Million mountain range, giving the soul cultivators a chance to escape. Unfortunately, the ones who seized this opportunity were neither the soul cultivators nor the cultivators of the human race, but the devil generals of the demon race. The flying dragon and great Peng in the sea of blood crazily attacked the bone birds condensed from white bones. Every bone-flying boat trembled violently. At this time, the Buddhist light smashed down like a mountain, 100 times more powerful than the sea of blood. Boom! With a loud bang, the white bone demon formation collapsed, and the bone birds were torn apart. Hundreds of bone-flying boats tumbled in the sky above the sea of blood. What was special was that when the demon formation collapsed, the great Peng also turned into ashes, and all the cultivators sitting on the bone-flying boats were sent flying. Xiaohua's figure tumbled in the air, but his eyes were looking at the source of the Buddhist light. After the blood-colored clouds disappeared, the mountain-like light revealed its true appearance. Wasn't it an out-and-out mountain? It was just that this mountain went straight up, without any twists and turns. The mountain was lush with fragrant trees. The 4 sides of the mountain protruded, and there were the palaces of the 4 heavenly kings. And the base of the mountain was pure gold sand. This mountain was divided into 3 levels, upper, middle, and lower 7 treasure steps. On both sides of the path were 7 layers of treasure walls, 7 layers of railings, 7 layers of nets, and 7 layers of trees. The doors, walls, windows, railings, trees, and so on were all made of gold, silver, crystal, colored glass, and so on. Flowers and fruits were flourishing, fragrant winds were everywhere, and countless strange birds were singing together, and ghosts and gods lived in it. This familiar mountain, the only mountain in the world. Wasn't it Mount Meru hanging in the center of the 4 continents? Wasn't it Mount Meru that Xiaohua saw in the ruins of the Buddhist sect? How did the disappeared Mount Meru appear here? Xiaohua's face was pale, and he seemed to understand something. In addition to being surprised, he secretly felt bad. Xiaohua suddenly knew where his previous warning came from. Sure enough, under the suppression of Mount Meru, how could the demon race run wild? Countless sealed Buddhist light fell like a waterfall, smashing into the bodies of all the cultivators at almost the same time. Aoao! Waves of anguished howls came from the left and right of Xiaohua. One by one, the humans who had been possessed by the demon race revealed their demon bodies, and these demon bodies were easily erased by the innate restraining Buddhist light. Similarly, waves of blood-curdling screams were also heard. Poison Stone Master, Shiqing, and the other nascent soul cultivators who were full of evil also received retribution from this Buddhist light. Wherever the Buddhist light fell, the nascent soul cultivators' bodies burst open, and their nascent souls melted. Without any resistance, they all fell into the sea of blood and disappeared without a trace. Xiaohua was naturally no exception. Wherever the Buddhist light fell, he was also beaten until he was rolling. With the strength of his shaman body, he was not afraid of being injured. Xiaohua was like this, so Zhang Jie was even more unafraid. A pair of light wings slightly spread out, just enough to cover Du Peng. When the Buddhist light fell on the light wings, it only made the light wings tremble. Ever since Zhang Jie entered the space of the Sea of Blood, he had already seen through the foundation of the Buddhist kingdom's seal. The sacred light realm was the mortal enemy of the Buddhist kingdom. How could she not have the means to resist this sealing Buddhist light? However, what Xiaohua did not know was that when the Buddhist light fell on his shaman body, the entire Mount Meru trembled. Not only did the Sea of Blood set off waves of blood, even the Buddhist light of Mount Meru became 10 times brighter. It was as if Mount Meru had discovered the secret of Xiaohua's shaman body. Even when the waves of blood rushed out, it had already blocked Zhang Jie and Du Peng from everyone's sight. However, Xiaohua did not notice this abnormality. He was looking at Bai Fei and Yi Yin with concern. Although Xiaohua disdained Bai Fei's selfishness, Bai Fei was after all a human cultivator. Moreover, he was also sincere towards Yi Yin. Xiaohua did not want this pair of lovers to fall in the sea of bitterness under Mount Meru. However, this Buddhist light fell too strangely. When Xiaohua looked over, Bai Fei had just produced layers of golden scales on the surface of his body, barely blocking the Buddhist light for Yi Yin. Just as the two of them were rolling helplessly in the Buddha's light, another layer of Buddha's light arrived. The Buddha's light did not fall, but an unparalleled pressure arrived first. The golden scales on Bai Fei's body cracked. Bai Fei cried out in a daze, "Senior, save me." Oh, Xiaohua was stunned, thinking that Bai Fei was calling him. However, the strange thing was that Bai Fei was not looking at Xiaohua, but Du Peng. Unfortunately, Du Peng and Zhang Jie were blocked by the waves of blood at this time. There was no trace of them at all. Could it be that Bai Fei has been colluding with Du Peng for a long time? Xiaohua's suspicions had just arisen. Boom! A pair of pure white feathers of light suddenly flashed out from behind Bai Fei. Although these feathers of light looked a little immature, they were tenacious in the Buddhist light, and actually supported Bai Fei's body. Bai Fei, save me. Seeing that Bai Fei still had a mysterious trick up his sleeve, Yi Yin, whose face was already filled with despair, immediately cried out. However, out of Yi Yin's expectations, Bai Fei's gaze swept past Yi Yin indifferently. He did not even reach out his hand. The light feathers suddenly flashed, and he turned around and rushed to the other side of the Sea of Blood. Bai! Yi Yin was stunned. She looked at Bai Fei's cold back in disbelief and cried out a heart-wrenching word. Her chest felt as if it was blocked, and she could no longer breathe. Seeing that the murderous Buddhist light had already landed on top of Yi Yin's head, Little Yi, don't panic. At this critical moment, when Xiaohua was also defeated by Bai Fei's ruthless attack, a hoarse and weak voice came from the edge of the sea of blood. Ji Yu, whose body was already damaged, flew out like a ghost. On Ji Yu's left arm, the strange blood pattern appeared again. His left arm turned into a tiger claw and slashed through the air, blocking the Buddhist light that was about to kill Yi Yun. At this time, half of the golden crown on Ji Yu's head was still left. Boom. With a soft sound, Ji Yu's left arm was crushed by the Buddhist light and broke inch by inch. Yi Yun's body was also swept by the Buddhist light and tumbled into the sea of blood. How could Ji Yu bear to see Yi Yun die? He tried his best to urge his broken body to catch Yi Yun. Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. Ji Yu's fingers had just touched Yi Yun's fingers when the two had already brushed past each other. However, in Yi Yun's desperate eyes, there was a trace of joy. Her lips moved a few times. Ji Yu, these two words were not spat out. Damn it! Xiaohua was enraged. Facing the two infatuated man and woman who were about to die, he could no longer hold himself back. He cursed in a low voice and his shaman body expanded. An aura that was as strong as Mount Meru swept across the sea of blood. Those two hands that were stronger than mountains grabbed Ji Yu and Yi Yun. Xiaohua, seeing the surge of aura and Zhang Jie's figure appearing from behind the sea of blood, she cried out in shock, "How can you?" Without waiting for Zhang Jie to finish his words, Mount Meru seemed to topple over. The entire Buddhist light phantom fell with a loud bang, and actually imprisoned the entire sea of blood. Go! Zhang Jie shouted. The 7 layers of light feathers hidden in his spiritual body all came out. His left hand grabbed Du Peng's neck, and his entire body rushed to the other side of the sea of blood like a stream of light. If it was not for Xiaohua's supreme wizard body, Zhang Jie would definitely not be able to fly across the sea of blood. However, now that Mount Meru was suppressing Xiaohua with all its might, how could it care about Zhang Jie? Angel Zhang Jie actually took the opportunity to sweep across the sea of blood before the power of imprisonment spread throughout the sea of blood. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian and support it. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-34. It had to be said that Bai Fei was a person with great fortune. As soon as he rushed out of the blood waves, he felt an incomparable power coming from behind him. He was very familiar with this power. Bai Fei was overjoyed. Before he could turn around, Zhang Jie's voice had already appeared in his ears. Don't move, I'll take you out. Thank you, senior. Thank you, senior. Bai Fei was overjoyed and repeatedly shouted. Thank you, senior, for saving this junior again. Unfortunately, what greeted Bai Fei was only a cold snort from Zhang Jie. Then, he felt a pain in his neck, and his whole body swept across the blood sea like a feather. The scene of Bai Fei abandoning Yi Yun was not only seen by Xiaohua, but also by Zhang Jie. Although Zhang Jie was not a human, he did not like Bai Fei, who was so heartless. Senior. Du Peng did not pay attention to Zhang Jie's rescue of Bai Fei. He knew that he was not out of danger yet, and also knew what he had to do. He only stared at the edge of the blood sea in the distance without blinking. Seeing that he was getting closer and the terrifying sealing power behind him was chasing after him, he hurriedly pointed at a place and shouted, "That place, quick, it's that place!" Zhang Jie's figure was like a ray of light as he rushed towards the place Du Peng pointed at. A demonic ring of the black demon path rushed out from that place and enveloped Zhang Jie's body of light. Rumble. As expected, the black demon path collapsed again and disappeared with Angel Zhang Jie, Demon General Du Peng, and the human Bai Fei. Before Zhang Jie entered the black demon path, he turned his head and saw that Mount Meru had already descended out of thin air and completely suppressed Xiaohua's previous location. Zhang Jie's heart turned cold. He understood that this Sumeru mountain was the core of the entire Buddhist formation. Even if Xiaohua was an immortal, he wouldn't be able to resist such a suppressive force. Even if he was an immortal, he wouldn't be able to resist it. Even if he was in Xiaohua's position, he would be instantly turned into ashes. Hence, Xiaohua had no chance to escape. What a pity for an immortal who was about to ascend. Zhang Jie sighed for a human, which was rare. He entered the black demon path with doubts. I don't know why he insisted on staying in the human world. Of course, Xiaohua was reluctant to let his enemies, Yi Yun and Su Ji, die in the sea of bitterness. His powerful wizard physique aura surged around him as he held the two of them in his hands. However, in reality, when the Buddha's light fell on Xiaohua's supreme wizard physique, the most powerful attack of Mount Meru had already begun to accumulate power. Now, when it struck out of nowhere, it was as if the entire 3,000 sectors were crashing down. Its power was even greater than the collapse of the sky, the collapse of the earth, and the annihilation of space. It was just as Zhang Jie had thought. Not to mention Xiaohua. Even if Su Ji and Fairy Xingyue were here, they would not be able to escape. However, Xiaohua didn't want to give up because there was still love in his heart and responsibility on his shoulders. He didn't hesitate to activate the going south, going north technique. He wanted to teleport out of this strongest seal that he had never encountered before. As soon as the Soul Cultivator's escape technique was used, Mount Meru became even angrier. Rays of Buddha's light, like roaring dragons, rushed out from the sea of blood, from the void, from the top of his head, and from the seal. They surrounded the entire space like an iron wall. Xiaohua's figure couldn't even move a single step, let alone teleport. Even Xiaohua's gaze was blocked and suppressed by this Buddha's light. However, the strange thing was that at the same time as the going south, going north technique was used, the light and shadows around Xiaohua rose again. The roaring dragons turned into pieces of light. This light carried compassion, majesty, warmth, and even an aura of freedom. Wasn't this the strange phenomenon that Xiaohua saw when he used the escape technique? Xiaohua didn't hesitate at all. His figure flashed, and he immediately escaped into a piece of light. The scene before Xiaohua's eyes instantly changed. The sea of blood was gone, the suppression was gone, and there were only rays of light and shadows. There was also a light path leading to an unknown place. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He knew that as long as he stepped into the light path, he should be able to use the escape technique and escape from Mount Meru's suppression. However, Xiaohua's ecstasy only lasted for a moment, because at this moment, a myriad of chaotic fluctuations appeared in the light path. Not only did they tear apart the rays of light and shadows, they even cut off most of the light path. Needless to say, these fluctuations were the power of Mount Meru's seal and suppression. As the saying goes, fortune doesn't come in pairs. Misfortune doesn't come alone. Before Xiaohua could truly step into the light path to escape, his shaman body trembled, and he escaped from the light path again. Xiaohua sighed. He looked at Ji Yu and Yi Yun in his two big hands and smiled bitterly in his heart. If I put these two into the space, Xiaohua can naturally escape using the escape technique. But if I bring these two along, how can Xiaohua hide in the light? Unless Xiaohua throws these two into the sea of bitterness right now. Xiaohua wasn't Bai Fei. Even though Ji Yu and Yi Yun weren't his relatives, he still couldn't abandon them. Therefore, Xiaohua had no choice but to abandon the escape technique. 3 corpses in lightning instantly surged around his body, and he escaped towards the bottom of the sea of bitterness. Boom boom boom. Huge rumbling sounds were emitted from the bottom of Mount Meru. The originally shaking space started to tremble even more. Since Xiaohua had already used all of his strength naturally exceeded the 9th grade of origin energy. But even so, he only escaped a few feet away and couldn't move forward anymore. How could Xiaohua of the mortal world escape from the seal of Mount Meru's Buddhist kingdom and the suppression of the 3,000 great worlds? Truly, one careless move and the whole game is lost. Seeing Mount Meru descending from the sky, Xiaohua sighed with emotion. If I came in at that time and restored the golden Buddha statue of Namwu Guanyin Bodhisattva, how could I be in such a predicament? But now, under the suppression, my Naiwan palace is sealed. Not only can Maitreya Buddha not come out, even Xiaohua's Buddhist consciousness and soul power can't be used. Xiaohua's sai could only be seen as the boniness of reality, the fullness of an ideal. Because the reason Xiaohua could enter the sea of bitterness was because of the power of Moon Tear. The Soul Cultivator's netherworld sea of blood was similar to the Buddhist kingdom sea of bitterness. The power of Moon Tear turned the sea of bitterness into the netherworld sea of blood, which led to Xiaohua's misunderstanding. But thinking about it again, even if Xiaohua restored the golden Buddha statue of Nanwu Guanyin Bodhisattva at that time, under the power of Moontir, would he be able to enter the barrier of the seal on the white bone flying boat? Perhaps he would have already been killed by the bloody light outside the barrier, right? Below Mount Meru was the place where the soul cultivator and the Buddhist kingdom fought to the death. One could only choose between the shaman body and the golden Buddha statue. Since Xiaohua chose the shaman body and obtained the qualifications to enter the Sea of Bitterness, the outcome of being suppressed was already unavoidable. Xiaohua already knew the outcome, but his heart was still unwilling. He saw the space above his head collapse and Mount Meru, which was enough to smash everything into ashes, fell down. His gaze fell on the crystal skull on his right hand's finger. Doesn't the Shaman King have the divine connection technique? Xiaohua's eyes turned rapidly and he secretly said, "Could it be that this Mount Meru is something that I can't think of?" While thinking, the remaining 3 corpses in lightning on the surface of Xiaohua's body rushed into the Shaman King's command. At the place where the lightning fell, the dark green shadow inside the crystal skull suddenly seemed to come alive and rushed out rapidly. That crystal skull instantly turned into a fuzzy human head. Roar! A deep roar came from the mouth of the human head. Soon after, the human head broke free from Xiaohua's right hand and turned into a bloody light that pounced into the Sea of Bitterness below. However, the human head didn't fall into the Sea of Bitterness. Boom! With a loud sound, the human head exploded and turned into bloody light that scattered everywhere in the Sea of Blood. When the bloody light appeared, the Sea of Bitterness's bloody waves immediately surged up. An inconceivably powerful bloodline power soared into the sky. Not only did the bloody waves cover Xiaohua's shaman body, the bloodline power even blocked Mount Meru in midair. Of course, under the Buddhist kingdom's Mount Meru, this powerful bloodline power merely appeared for a moment. However, it was precisely during this moment that Mount Meru fell again. Within the bloody waves, Xiaohua's figure had already mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Boom! Mount Meru fell into the Sea of Bitterness with unstoppable momentum. As the bloody waves rolled, the white bone flying ship that was destroyed by the Buddhist light, the remains of the human and demon race, and everything else turned into powder and no longer existed in this world. Buzz buzz buzz. Mount Meru killed everything and once again let out a rumbling sound as it flew high into the sky. Under its might, it once again brought about a boundless bloody wave. And within this bloody wave, a silver ball of light that was only a few feet in size appeared in the bloody wave again. Above this silver ball of light, immortal chi faintly seeped out. A silver-white little wolf's face carried incomparable fear as it watched Mount Meru rise. "Isn't this the wolf race's beauty, you? Damn it!" The silver wolf cursed in a low voice. "What the hell is going on? There is actually the Buddhist kingdom's Mount Meru here, and that human Xiaohua is actually such a powerful cultivator. I actually pretended to be a human in front of him for so long. Presumably, he has already seen through my true appearance, right? However, fortunately, this human called Taoist Master Xiao is still considered benevolent. He did not expose me, nor did he kill me like the other humans. However, I used the immortal talisman bestowed by the Snow Wolf King. How can I capture the little fox and return to the 10,000 demon realm? Oh, not good. The immortal talisman used by the Silver Wolf race was naturally bestowed by the human form with the surname Shun. This immortal talisman was originally unable to resist Mount Meru. But the focus of Mount Meru was on Xiaohua, which allowed the Silver Wolf race and even Zhang Jie to easily escape. At this time, Xiaohua disappeared, and Mount Meru naturally discovered the existence of the immortal talisman. Without waiting for Mount Meru to rush into the sky, an unparalleled suppressive force pounced on the Silver Wolf race. Under the fear, how could the Silver Wolf race not cry out? However, when the Silver Wolf race looked around, she was surprised to find that at this time, she had already reached the edge of the Blood Sea. Wasn't the Black Demon path beside her? The Silver Wolf race did not even think about it. Her demon body jumped out of the immortal talisman recklessly and pounced on the Black Demon path. Shwa! The Silver Wolf race's figure disappeared into the Black Demon path, and the suppressive force burst in. Ka! In the trembling sound, the Black Demon path collapsed inch by inch and followed the Silver Wolf race. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to the starting point to subscribe to support, vote a monthly vote, vote a recommendation vote, collect a gift. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-35. Lianfeng, the alliance master of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance, was very ambitious. Du Peng even had ulterior motives. It had been almost 1,000 years since Du Peng met Zhang Jie in the Yiling continent, and since Xiao Hua waved the Permitha twice to send Xue Xue and helplessness into the dark side of the space. In the past 1,000 years, how many people of the Wuming mountain range had Du Peng sacrificed? Moreover, the Defeat Immortal Alliance finally gathered thousands of nascent soul and gold core disciples who were qualified to pass through the heaven and earth restriction formation. Du Peng also prepared carefully and added tens of thousands of humans who were possessed by the devil race. This was a total of 50,000 cultivators, plus the holy light angel Zhang Jie, and the supreme master of the human race, Xiao Hua. At this moment, only Zhang Jie, Du Peng, Bai Fei, and the Silver Wolf clan had escaped. Xiao Hua, Ji Yu, and Yi Yun's fate was unknown, and the rest of the human race, devil race, and monster race had been annihilated. The dangers of going to the Lost Lands were obvious. No wonder Long Shenxi, Old Man Guqiong, and the other Dao sect's sovereigns didn't dare to come and help, even though they knew that Xiao Hua was the savior of the world. It was because they knew that entering the Lost Lands was equivalent to death. In fact, if it weren't for the devil race, Du Peng might not have come in person. Wasn't the ambitious Lianfeng the same? Bai Fei, who was doomed to die, was saved twice by the angel Zhang Jie in the Wuming mountain range. How could Xiao Hua, who had the fate of the human race as his meridians, be in trouble? The Shaman King token turned into a piece of blood, and an incomparable bloodline power soared into the sky, temporarily blocking Mount Meru. A small whirlpool suddenly appeared in the wave of blood that covered Xiao Hua. The whirlpool was pitch black, and it led straight to the bottom of the Sea of Bitterness. A netherworld energy that Xiao Hua was familiar with seeped out from this whirlpool. This netherworld energy was even stronger than the bloodline power from before, and it was like a large hand that grabbed Xiao Hua. With a woo sound, Xiao Hua was not allowed to struggle, and he was immediately dragged to the bottom of the Sea of Bitterness. What kind of power is this? Xiao Hua's heart moved as he cried out in disbelief. Could it be that there's really an ancient great god being suppressed under Mount Meru? Xiao Hua's figure descended like lightning. The situation of the Sea of Bitterness changed again. First, it was the surging of waves of blood, followed by layers of flames. Countless little ghosts and countless human figures of men and women appeared. The little ghosts pried open the human figures' mouths, clamped their tongues with iron pincers, and pulled them out forcefully. They did not pull them out all at once, but rather they stretched them out and pulled them out slowly. After that, there was the sound of sharp blades. Countless little ghosts held strange torture instruments in their hands, and were cutting off the fingers of some men and women. 10-18 levels of hell? Xiao Hua was inexplicably startled. This Xiao, could it be that I still haven't escaped the suppression of Mount Meru and will be sent to the 18th layer of hell? After that, the miserable state of the hell of trees of steel, the hell of mirrors of retribution, the hell of steamers, the hell of bronze pillars, the hell of icebergs, and so on and so forth entered Xiao Hua's eyes, and the shrill cries of those men and women resounded incessantly. After an unknown period of time, with a loud boom, the netherworld energy enveloping Xiao Hua's body suddenly disappeared. The strange realm that was originally outside the path of power even pounced over like flowing light and shadow. Woo! After the strange whistling of the wind, an unbearable heat emerged from Xiao Hua's surroundings. Volcanoes that were shrouded in smoke appeared in front of Xiao Hua's eyes again. However, these volcanoes flickered with dark red flames. Amidst the loud boom boom boom, countless magma and gravel soared into the sky. They either smashed into various places in the space or rushed toward Xiao Hua's shaman body. Every gravel carried the power to destroy heaven and earth, and every stream of magma seemed to be able to melt Xiao Hua. Volcanic hell? Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and coldly looked at the gravel rushing towards him. He did not resist at all, and said indifferently, since it's the volcanic hell of the 18 levels of hell, according to the records in the Buddhist scriptures, It should be the 16th layer of hell for those who commit crimes for personal gain, bribe, steal, rob, and commit arson. Let this little criminal be driven into the volcano to be burned alive, and not die to be punished. Although this Xiao is a Taoist cultivator, if this Xiao breaks the precepts, I will also be driven into this volcano. However, the heavenly Tao is clear. Who has seen this Xiao break this precepts? Ha ha. After hearing a hearty laugh, the volcano, magma, and gravel all disappeared. An indomitable deity appeared. This deity had a human face and a dragon tail. This deity's face was square, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. His appearance looked very ordinary, but in Xiaohua's eyes, a kind of incomparably amiable, incomparably upright, and incomparably benevolent feeling arose spontaneously. Looking at the deity's dragon tail again, it shone with a golden light. On the large dragon scales, there were innate dragon patterns that were completely different from those of the dragon clan. These dragon patterns gave birth to strange scenes in the golden light. The Shaman King smiled and said, "They are both good kids. I know that." Senior also knows Ziming? Xiaohua's face was filled with joy. He asked, "Is Ziming doing well?" "Of course she's doing well. If you want to see her, it's not too difficult," the Shaman King answered. Xiaohua was startled and asked curiously, "Not difficult?" "Of course." The Shaman King nodded and said, "I have been suppressed here for who knows how many years. I am already tired of this feeling of being suppressed, so I am prepared to exhaust my soul power to send you out of this place." "Absolutely not," Xiaohua hurriedly shouted. "If you are no longer here, wouldn't there be no Shaman King in Wuming Mountain Range? Without the Shaman King, would Wuming Mountain Range still be Wuming Mountain Range?" Junior came here today to discuss with Senior on how to help Senior get out of this predicament. Escape? The Shaman King's words were filled with helplessness, but his tone was calm. He replied, "Taoist Xiao, you have also seen Mount Meru in the place of suppression. The Buddhist kingdom abandoned the center of the 4 great continents, and directly suppressed me in Wuming Mountain Range with the 3,000 great worlds. Do you think that with your strength you can save me?" This. Xiaohua was at a loss for words. He was actually too busy to take care of himself, so how could he save others? What's more, I'm the Shaman King. However, there were Shaman Kings before me, so there will naturally be Shaman Kings after me. A smile appeared on the Shaman King's face as he said, "Could it be that you think I've asked you to come here just to see you? Did I exhaust my soul power to let you pass through this place of suppression?" "Ah." Xiaohua's face revealed an incredulous expression. He said in surprise, "Son, Senior actually wants to give the position of Shaman King to me?" "Yes," the Shaman King replied. "If not, why would I exhaust my soul power to use the soul connection technique? If not, why would I give you the Shaman King token and let you come here?" Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "But Senior, I am a Taoist Mahayana realm, and I am about to ascend." Isn't it just ascension?" The Shaman King casually waved his hand and said, "If you agree to be the Shaman King of Wuming Mountain Range and Million Mountain Range, I will let you stay in the mortal world for another 10,000 years." "Forget it." Xiaohua shook his head and said with a smile, "Senior, there are other humans who are more suitable than me to be the Shaman King. Why do you have to find me?" "Are you talking about Ziming?" The Shaman King frowned and said, "She is a child with excellent aptitude, but unfortunately, she has a yin body, so she can't be the Shaman King of Wuming Mountain Range." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it and... Chapter 50-36. When he spoke up to hear, the Shaman King's eyes suddenly lit up, and he said, "Taoist Master Xiao, I remember now. Ziming is deeply devoted to you, and you once charged into the Nether Blood Sea for her. How about this? Let your son be the Shaman King." Ah! Xiaohua was even more stunned. He looked at the Shaman King and shook his head. "Senior, you're too imaginative. Not to mention that I can't see Ziming right now, and not to mention that I'm only close friends with Ziming. Even if I'm in love with Ziming, will my son be able to take the position of Shaman King? After all, A son is a son, not me or Ziming. He can only inherit a part of me and Ziming. It's impossible for him to be a complete copy of us. The Shaman King looked pensive. He pinched his chin and said, Taoist Master Xiao, this is the so-called human nature, right? Every human has it, but every human is different. Xiao Hua hesitated for a moment and nodded. Senior, you're right. This is also human nature. Senior, maybe you were born as a Shaman King and have been suppressed all this time. Or maybe you have a strange ability, so you don't know about this, right? If that's the case, then I was wrong. The Shaman King frowned. But Taoist Master Xiao, can you explain to me what human nature is? Why will your son have human nature? This. Xiao Hua was a bit embarrassed. He thought for a moment and said, Confucian cultivators have said that human nature has both good and evil. Either good is the beginning, or evil is the beginning, or neither good nor evil. Of course, in life, whether human nature is good or evil, it may include self-interest. But people don't live only for self-interest. Otherwise, there won't be noble human nature. Human nature is divided into good and evil levels. Sacrificing oneself for others is great kindness. Benefiting others for oneself is good. Harming others for oneself is evil. Harming others for oneself is evil. Harming others without benefiting oneself is great evil. In the name of others, doing self-interest is hypocritical. In the name of self-interest, doing self-interest is hypocritical. Xiao Hua talked a lot, but the Shaman King frowned more and more. Xiao Hua saw that he couldn't do it, so he said casually, Of course, human nature is the foundation of human nature. But it's difficult to say what human nature is. However, when compared to the demon race and the demon race, it was clear. Let's first talk about the demon race. They feed on demon qi and live by devouring. They emphasize the law of the jungle and slaughter. This is their demonic nature. Next, we talk about the demon race. They feed on the stars and moon and live by fighting. There are emotions in human nature. What joy, anger, sorrow, joy, and sorrow. When Xiao Hua's mouth became dry, the Shaman King asked again, Since human nature is so complicated, how can it appear out of thin air? Is it just the sexual intercourse between a man and a woman? Xiao Hua's heart stirred. He looked at the Shaman King in confusion, then pondered for a moment before replying, Since there is a sky above and earth below in this world, and the human race is divided into men and women, then it's natural for men and women to have sex. There is a saying in the human race that yin cannot be born alone, and yang cannot be born alone. Therefore the heaven and earth are matched with yin and yang. When yin and yang are in harmony, that is the way to longevity. Furthermore, men have a rebellious nature while women have a submissive nature. For those who follow the will of heaven, men take women's submissive nature, while women take men's rebellious nature. If men take a rebellious nature while women take a submissive nature, they will mess up the will of heaven, defy the laws of heaven, and invert yin and yang. However, this kind of sexual intercourse can also be done with beasts. Our human race has human nature, but we take its yin and yang, and we communicate with human nature. As he spoke, Xiao Hua raised his left and right hands, revealing Jiyu and Yiyun. He looked at Yiyun and said, This woman has a submissive nature, but her body has a different characteristic. Our human race calls it the absolute evil profound yin, or even the yin body. If through yin and yang intercourse, this extreme yin object can be drawn out, and it can increase a cultivator's cultivation. If it's purely drawn out, it's extremely sexual intercourse. If it's supplemented with human emotions, it's called yin and yang. Look at this man, he's called Jiyu. Then Xiao Hua explained the emotional entanglement of Bai Fei, Jiyu, and Yiyun in detail. Finally, he said, This is emotion, and it can also be considered a side of human nature. This old man is asking you how human nature is born. The Shaman King was somewhat displeased. He frowned and said, If you can't even answer such a small question, how can this old man be at ease handing over the position of Shaman King to you? Hearing this, the doubt on Xiao Hua's face disappeared. He said with a smile, Senior is wrong again. The birth of human nature is a great mystery of heaven and earth. With the human race's ability, they still can't solve it. Therefore, Junior also can't answer Senior. Moreover, Junior has never promised Senior that I will take over the position of Shaman King. Senior, please find another fated person, right? Taoist Master Xiao, the birth of human nature, is actually so difficult? The Shaman King shook his head in disbelief. However, his tone didn't have any doubts. Instead, it was cold as he asked, "This old man doesn't believe that you're deliberately hiding it." Haha. Xiaohua laughed loudly. His right hand protected Ji Yu and Yi Yun. He raised his left hand and pointed at the Shaman King, saying, "The weight of human nature is the foundation of our human race. However, the lightness of human nature is something that no human race has ever pursued. It's because everyone has human nature, although this human nature is different. If someone insists on tangling about what human nature is, then it's not to test whether or not he has the qualifications to be the Shaman King, but because he doesn't have human nature. Do you think this Xiao is right, Sir Formation Spirit? Damn it." Hearing this, the Shaman King's tone unconsciously changed. He actually cursed secretly. However, it didn't exceed Xiaohua's expectations. The Shaman King's face didn't have any expression like a smile. It was still abnormally calm. This was similar to the expression of Wen Chu, Taoist Witch, and the other doppelgangers, as well as the Thunderbolt Immortal's expression now. Xiaohua was used to seeing the doppelganger's ruthlessness and inhumanity. Perhaps he suddenly didn't understand at first, but how could he not understand after that? As for human nature, Xiaohua could be considered to have painstakingly explained it. However, the origin of human nature, Xiaohua didn't dare to easily tell this formation spirit. After all, Taoist which devoured 10,000 souls, Huangtong devoured 10,000 beasts, and Demon Venerable Sure also devoured 10,000 souls to become an independent entity. If this powerful formation spirit knew about this, who knows what kind of bloody storm it would create in Wuming Mountain Range. "You actually saw through my true appearance?" The Shaman King, who was actually the formation spirit, was a little surprised and asked, "You, how did you see through it?" Xiaohua touched his nose and laughed. "It's very simple, you don't have human nature." "Damn it, damn it, damn it!" The formation spirit roared a few times and shouted, "I don't know what human nature is, that's why I came to ask you. Actually, it's very simple." Xiaohua laughed. "Release the Great Array and leave by yourself. Wander the world of mortals, and you can obtain human nature." "I am the formation spirit. How can I leave the Great Array?" The formation spirit said angrily. "Don't think that you can use this trick to deceive me just because you want to break the array and release death. I won't be fooled." "Death?" Xiaohua was stunned and asked curiously, "Your Buddha Kingdom's Mount Meru is suppressing death? Which great soul cultivator is this? Do you want to know?" The formation spirit smiled faintly and raised his hand to point below him, saying, "He's right below you." Xiaohua looked down and saw that below him, which he didn't pay attention to, was formed by layers of flames. The flames were like tassels dancing in the wind, looking very beautiful. However, Xiaohua understood that these flames were definitely not ordinary flames. Perhaps it was the Red Lotus karmic fire. As long as a cultivator was trapped in it, they wouldn't be able to escape. The 12 great soul cultivator gods are all famous people. This death great god is naturally a character that the shaman in the Wuming Mountain Range who didn't know the inside story arbitrarily called. How can he be on the same level as the 12 great gods? Xiaohua smiled coldly and replied, "This kind of character, even if his cultivation is through the heavens, this Xiao disdains to meet him." Huh? The formation spirit laughed loudly. Following his laughter, the Mount Meru pressure that Xiaohua was familiar with reappeared. The flames below him also turned into a sea of fire, gradually covering the space. "Now that you're here, how can you not meet him just because you say so? I'm still waiting to see how human nature is born." As he spoke, the suppressive force fell like the sky collapsing, and Xiaohua fell into the sea of fire without any resistance. Xiaohua fell into the sea of fire, but the expected Red Lotus karmic fire did not come as expected. Instead, to Xiaohua's surprise, the sea of fire began to manifest. All kinds of sounds, fragrances, tastes and tactile sensations came one after another. Not only that, the flames condensed again, and handsome men and beautiful women were born. Bursts of panting and moaning also crashed into Xiaohua's ears, and all kinds of sexual intercourse appeared around Xiaohua like light and shadow. Asterisk 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 asterisk. 6 desires heaven? Xiaohua turned pale with fright and hurriedly closed his eyes. Unfortunately, even if Xiaohua closed his eyes, the situation of 6 desires heaven still clearly fell into his mind. Just as Xiaohua was lost in thought, he suddenly saw that Jiyu and Yi-Yun had broken free from the shackles of his right hand at some point, and were already having sex not far away. Damn it! Xiaohua cursed in a low voice, knowing that this was the doing of the Array Spirit. Under Mount Meru, the Array Spirit was everything. Xiaohua did not hesitate and hurriedly swayed his body, habitually trying to fly away. To Xiaohua's surprise, his body flashed away from Jiyu and Yi-Yun, and he arrived at a place where the flames were slightly extinguished. However, before Xiaohua could speak, a woman with a curvy figure and bronze skin walked out naked from the side of the flames. Looking at her pretty face, wasn't she Ziming of Huta's stockade? Xiaohua suddenly felt that something was wrong and thought that this was an illusion, but when he looked over, he saw clearly that this was the real Ziming, but she had taken off her clothes, so Xiaohua could not be sure for a while. Ziming? Xiaohua hurriedly looked into Ziming's eyes and asked in a low voice, "Why are you here?" Unfortunately, Ziming's eyes were dull and expressionless. She only looked at Xiaohua blankly and did not answer Xiaohua's question. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. End of update. Thank you for your support. Don't say that you're not happy with it, just read slowly. Chapter 50-37. Damn it. Xiaohua immediately understood the meaning of the formation spirit. He cursed in a low voice and turned around, wanting to leave. Unfortunately, after seeing Ziming, it was already extremely difficult for him to leave. Xiaohua only felt that his entire body was firmly suppressed by the Mount Sumeru. Although he had a supreme wizard body, he was unable to move at all. He could only watch as Ziming walked over. Even so what? Xiaohua secretly kept his Taoist heart clear. He wanted to emerge from the mud without being stained. But how could the Matrix Spirit let him do as he wished? How could the power of 6 desires heaven be resisted by a cultivator from the mortal realm, who was being suppressed by Mount Sumeru? Xiaohua felt his vision go dark, and his instincts had completely taken control of him. There was no need to mention the various details. Time stopped, and the spring breeze sneaked in. After an unknown period of time, Ziming's bronze body was covered in sweat. But the strange thing was, as the sweat formed, waves of the laws of heaven and earth rushed into Ziming's body. Xiaohua was a body of laws, and now he had achieved the supreme wizard body. Even if Ziming cultivated for another 10,000 or 100,000 years, he would definitely not be able to withstand such an impact. However, under the waves, a 9-colored glow appeared around Ziming's body. This glow became more and more intense. Not only did it cover Ziming's body, but it also blocked Xiaohua, who had his eyes closed. When the glow was dense, 4 light shadows appeared behind Ziming. These light shadows trembled and emitted strange ripples. Wherever the ripples passed, the void was distorted. Gradually, the light shadows of Ziming's body trembled violently. 2 similar light shadows were born behind Ziming. An indescribable strange movement came from the distorted void. When the waves fell into Ziming's body, his bronze body immediately shrank and turned rose-red, like a beautiful corolla. An extremely beautiful Jiuxia appeared. However, just as Jiuxia's figure appeared, it disappeared again, as if this humanoid body could not withstand the waves. The waves fell into Xiaohua's body with Jiuxia. Rumble. Thousands of profound meanings surged wildly in Xiaohua's body like colorful streamers. Heaven and earth merged, and yin and yang were in harmony. This was the moment when the mysteries of the heavenly way were born. Boom, boom, boom. As the profundities within Xiaohua's body blossomed, the space that was originally enveloped by flames began to rumble with the rumbling of thunder. Layer after layer of the laws of heaven and earth appeared out of nowhere, and enveloped Xiaohua and Jiuxia. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Waves of immortal chi that had been sealed by Mount Meru were released, and one after another, the lightning tribulation actually appeared at this moment. Damn it! The formation spirit's human-faced dragon-headed figure appeared in the sky. It was still as indomitable as before. However, the formation spirit looked at the lightning tribulation with a worried expression. Who did I offend? I just want to obtain humanity. Why is it so difficult? I've been an array spirit for so many years, but I just want to go out for a walk. Am I wrong? Just when there were some clues, my hope of achieving humanity fell on this Taoist Xiao. Why did the thunder tribulation come? Forget it, forget it. I might as well kill this Taoist master Xiao. Senior. Jiuxia's figure shyly said in the void. I hope Senior can resist Taoist Xiao's thunder tribulation. Otherwise, Senior's chance of achieving humanity will be gone. Little fox. Although the formation spirit said to kill, its dragon tail still swayed. A layer of sealing power temporarily blocked the thunder tribulation. But it didn't erase it. Instead, it looked at Jiuxia and asked, Don't lie to this old man. Is your yin-yang discernment technique real? This Taoist Xiao is a human cultivator, who is about to ascend to the immortal world. How could he let this old man obtain humanity? Jiuxia didn't reveal her figure, but said softly, Senior, you might not believe Junior's yin-yang discernment technique. But you should know the shaman clan's divine connection technique, right? The divine connection technique shows that if you want to obtain humanity, you have to start with this Taoist Xiao, right? Even to the extent that Junior didn't hesitate to do it with Taoist Xiao for you. In the eyes of the formation spirit, there was naturally no such thing as sexual intercourse. He frowned and said, This old man feels that something is wrong. Is this the only way to obtain humanity? Is there any other way? Jiuxia was also dumbfounded. She asked curiously, Didn't Taoist Xiao just say that this is the way to obtain humanity? Don't tell me there's another way? But the formation spirit said coldly, This old man didn't obtain any humanity? Therefore this old man can't abide by the previous promise and let this Xiaohua go. If I don't suppress this place, I will kill him. Gitch. Jiuxia chuckled like a silver bell. Senior, the heaven collapses and the earth destroys yin and yang. Just now, even Junior sensed the supreme heaven and earth's profound meaning. Don't tell me that you didn't sense it in this Buddhist formation space? The formation spirit was somewhat hesitant. Humanity isn't formed in a day, Jiuxia said with some emotion. Even if a human child is born, it will take 10 months to conceive. Senior is a formation spirit born from heaven and earth. This process will probably take thousands of years. The profound meaning of heaven and earth just now is the primer for Senior to achieve humanity. Senior only needs to carefully comprehend it, and you can definitely achieve humanity and break away from the Buddhist formation. The formation spirit was silent for a long time. The accumulated lightning tribulation was getting thicker and thicker. Jiuxia was somewhat anxious, but she still hid in the profound meaning and didn't show herself. After half an hour, the formation spirit suddenly stretched out his hand. Boom! The shadow of Mount Meru appeared and immediately destroyed the layers of lightning tribulation. The formation spirit's figure swayed and disappeared. A faint and emotionless voice floated in the air. This old man will believe you for the time being. However, if this old man finds that something is wrong, you may be able to escape, but that guy will be out of luck. Gitch Senior, don't worry. Jiuxia smiled and said, Senior, it's not like you don't know about Junior's remarkable ability. Let's not talk about other things. Junior said that Taoist Xiao will come soon. Isn't he already here? I hope you're right. The formation spirit's voice disappeared, but the suppressive force didn't weaken at all. The formation spirit left, but Xiaohua didn't wake up. After a long time, Jiuxia revealed her charming body from the void. She looked at Xiaohua with tenderness in her eyes, then stretched out her flawless arms and hugged Xiaohua tightly. Her lips were already on Xiaohua's cheek as she muttered to herself, Xiaohua, this concubine really didn't expect that such a big change would happen today. This concubine only wanted to save you from the formation spirit's hands, but by accident. I got the promise you made to this concubine in the early years. In the early years, this concubine couldn't ask you for help. After all, your strength was too shallow. Moreover, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth on Xiaoyu continent had started to change, and the human race's cultivation was getting increasingly difficult. Only my demon race could stand out in this change. In this concubine's opinion, after you've cultivated for tens of thousands, or even 100,000 years and reached the supreme realm of the human race with my help, this concubine would have the nerve to ask you to help this concubine reach the five-tailed realm. This concubine also planned to give my Qingqiu Mountains corolla to you at that time. Then this concubine would do what this concubine should do. But this concubine never thought that in just a few hundred years, not even 1,000 years, you would cultivate to the realm of ascension, and fulfill this concubine's long-cherished wish, and even surpass this concubine's expectations. This concubine really doesn't know if I should be happy or regretful. After all, without your permission, this concubine has taken away Sister Hongxia's love. This is too sudden. Damn it. Venerable Wu. He must be hiding something. No wonder he said that a new shaman king of Meng Mountains would be born soon. I thought he was talking about you. Who knew? It was actually. At this point, Jiuxia's beautiful face revealed a heart-wrenching sadness. This sadness caused the entire space to lose its color. I understand now. Venerable Wu wasn't hiding anything. He didn't know what would happen either. He only knew that a new shaman king would be born soon. Either Xiaolang or someone else. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked Ziming to come here at the same time, and he wouldn't have asked me to transform into Ziming's appearance. However, due to a freak combination of factors, how could Ziming's mortal body withstand Xiaolang's shaman body? But how could a shaman king of Meng Mountains have the bloodline of Qingqiu Mountain? Even if he did, he couldn't let others know. Ziming, oh Ziming, if that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you. As she was speaking, Jiuxia transformed her graceful body into a gust of wind, and escaped from Xiaohua's body. Even though Jiuxia was a descendant of Qingqiu Mountain's Yin Fox clan, she was still trembling while standing in midair. She looked at her own proud body, and with a sway of her body, a bronze-skinned Ziming was revealed. Jiuxia waved her hand again, and from the flame beneath her, Ziming walked out with a flushed face. This Ziming looked exactly like Jiuxia. However, Ziming's skin was fair, different from the millions of natives of Meng Mountains, while Jiuxia's skin was bronze-skinned. Ziming. Jiuxia said apologetically, I know that your friendship with Reverend Xiao is more than love, and you mostly treat him as a confidant. However, now that things have developed to this stage, it's already far beyond our expectations. I'm sure you already know how the next shaman king of Meng Mountains is going to be born. You won't let this shaman king have no roots, right? Somewhat bashfully, Ziming glanced at Xiaohua and stuttered. I don't know what the shaman king told you, but I believe for the future shaman king, you'll definitely sacrifice everything. Jiuxia's long eyelashes fluttered, and she said somewhat self-mockingly, Actually, don't you think I've sacrificed more than you? Ziming pondered for a moment, then nodded firmly and said, I understand, you don't have to say anything else. All right, then I'll leave this place to you. Jiuxia didn't beat around the bush and replied, Don't reveal any flaws. Xiaohua has a peaceful temperament, but he hates it when others scheme against him, although we didn't scheme against him. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, save it, tip it, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 50-38. Hurry up and leave. Ziming's gaze became more and more determined as he urged. Jiuxia glanced at Ziming with jealousy in her eyes, but when she looked at Xiaohua again, tenderness reappeared. Jiuxia couldn't help but walk to Xiaohua's side and kiss him. She whispered, Xiaohua, after this farewell, I'm afraid we won't meet again. I don't know if you will forget me when you reach the immortal world. After saying that, Jiuxia's resolute figure swayed, and the flame under her body disappeared. Ziming looked left and right, gritted his teeth and took off his strange clothes, revealing his snow-white body. Xiaohua. How could Jiuxia just leave like this? She hid in the flame, looking at Ziming's painful and joyful expression, and then at Xiaohua's slightly frowning brows. She said to herself, I don't know if you can notice my narrow-mindedness. After an unknown period of time, Xiaohua woke up, and an indescribable regret arose from the bottom of his heart. It would be too heartless to say that the spring dream left no trace. Xiaohua looked at Ziming, who was dressed neatly, but his body was trembling slightly as he knelt in front of him. I went to the wind and snow, and became the wind and snow man again. I patrolled the sky without a trace, and returned in the wind and snow night. The heroic poem was still ringing in his ears. It seemed that the Sky Patrol City was just yesterday, and the sacrificial night was just last night. A woman who could be his eternal confidant had become. What had she become? Xiaohua couldn't think about it anymore. He didn't want to be the head of Huta Village, nor did he want to be the head of Huta Village, nor did he want to be the head of millions of Meng Mountains. However, fate made fools of people. For the so-called human nature, the damn formation spirit pushed him to an extremely awkward position. Ziming. Xiaohua thought for a moment, and ignored the formation spirit with a human face and a dragon tail not far away. He said with a smile on his face, "Get up, this is all my fault. You don't have to do this." "Young master." Ziming's voice trembled with excitement, shyness, and fear. He said in a low voice, "Thank you for your generosity, young master. On behalf of millions of people in Meng Mountains, I thank you." Xiaohua was slightly embarrassed. Even though he didn't remember what had happened earlier, he was clearly aware of the changes in his shaman body. Ziming slightly raised her head. Her face was flushed red like a lotus that had just emerged from the water. Her pair of beautiful eyes looked at Xiaohua with both worship and love. Her tone changed to rebuke. "Young master, could it be that you regret it?" "Sweat." Xiaohua hurriedly waves his hand and says, "How could this Xiao regret it? It's just that things happen too suddenly. It's fine as long as you don't regret it." Ziming smiled and said, "Sir, you don't need to worry about me. I know what I should do." "Are you satisfied now?" Xiaohua sneered and raised his head. He looked at the array spirit with a human face and a dragon tail and asked, "Can you find the mystery of the birth of human nature?" Daoist Xiao. The array spirit with a human face and a dragon tail had never spoken. Now that he heard Xiaohua's rebuke, he replied with a smile on his face. "This old man is not the array spirit of Mount Meru's Buddhist formation. This old man is the shaman king of millions of Meng Mountains." Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. His face revealed a look of disbelief. He stared at the array spirit with a human face and a dragon tail. Of course, in just a moment, Xiaohua saw the difference between the two. The array spirit was naturally the array spirit. Even though his tone pretended to be emotional, it sounded cold. But this shaman king with a human face and a dragon tail had a smile on his face. His eyes were filled with joy and excitement. He was not something that the inhumane array spirit could compare to. "Senior." Xiaohua looked at the shaman king with a bitter smile and says, "You have suffered." Xiaohua had only said the word suffering, but he immediately felt that it was inappropriate. He stole a glance at Ziming, who was crawling over there, and hurriedly changed his words. "Senior's divine connection technique is indeed formidable." The real shaman king had already turned into the same size as Xiaohua. He smiled and said, "When this old man used the God-connecting technique that day, I only knew that Senior was the savior of millions of Meng Mountains, and also our benefactor in the future. I also knew that some unexpected things would happen when Senior came to Wushan Ridge, but what happened today is also beyond my expectation. Senior, please call Junior Xiaohua or Daoist Xiao." Xiaohua quickly replied, "Even though Junior has some strength, but with Ziming here, how can Junior dare to call himself Senior?" This old man will call you Daoist Xiao." The shaman king was very satisfied with Xiaohua's modesty. He nodded and said with a smile. After confirming the shaman king's identity, Xiaohua hesitated for a moment and asked, "What the formation spirit said earlier, is it true?" The shaman king was a little embarrassed and said in a low voice, "As the shaman king of millions of Meng Mountains, this old man has always been suppressed here. The formation spirit knows most of my matters, but the matters of the formation spirit. This old man doesn't know anything, so this old man doesn't know what the formation spirit said to Daoist." Xiao Hua understood and told the Shaman King what the formation spirit said earlier. The Shaman King nodded and said, "What the formation spirit said is correct. This old man's true body has always been under the Buddha formation. Wuxia Ridge is just this old man's soul body, or called soul shadow." Then Junior has a few questions to ask Senior. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and asked, "Taoist, please ask." The Shaman King said with a smile, "Now that you and I are family, there's nothing to hide." Xiao Hua's face was slightly red, and he turned to Ziming and said, "Ziming, get up. You being like this makes me uneasy." "Thank you, young master." Ziming cheerfully got up, but Xiao Hua glanced at Ziming and suddenly frowned. He opened his mouth to say something, but hesitated. He turned to look at the Shaman King and said, "Senior, can the formation spirit hear what we're saying now? If he wants to know, he will definitely know. If he doesn't want to know, he won't know." The Shaman King replied, "However, if Taoist doesn't want him to know, this old man can keep him from knowing for a short period of time." "Oh, there's no need for that now." Xiao Hua understood the Shaman King's meaning and nodded, asking, "Senior, since things have happened beyond Senior's expectations, then, why is Ziming here so coincidentally? This is the place where Senior is suppressed by Mount Meru. Not just anyone can enter, right? Senior, don't say that she coincidentally came to visit Senior." The Shaman King didn't care about Xiao Hua's suspicions in the slightest. Instead, he chuckled and said, "What Taoist said is right. Anyone who encounters such a strange thing will surely ask a few more questions. But didn't the formation spirit say it before? This old man predicted that Taoist would come to my Wuxia Ridge, and that's why I brought the Shaman King's token to Taoist. As for why Ziming can come here, it's something that I've been racking my brains to do. This old man is already old, and I don't have much time left. The Shaman King of Million Meng Mountains hasn't appeared yet, so how can this old man rest assured?" This old man used the divine connection art to predict that Ziming will encounter some opportunities in Wuxia Ridge, and there might be traces of the next Shaman King. That's why this old man ordered Ziming to come here 10 years ago. A few days ago, Ziming suddenly disappeared from this old man's side. Only then did this old man realize that the new Shaman King might be related to the formation spirit. A few days ago? Xiao Hua blinked his eyes, feeling too ashamed to continue asking. However, he gritted his teeth and said, "Since this is a place controlled by the formation spirit, how can Ziming come and go freely?" "Taoist, there's something you don't know." The Shaman King explained, "This Buddha formation is perfectly sealed on the other side of Million Meng Mountains, but there are some flaws on this side of Wuxia Ridge. That's why this old man can leave my soul in Wuxia Ridge. Furthermore, this Buddha formation has suppressed this old man for a long time, and the formation spirit only watches over this old man. As long as this old man doesn't leave the Buddha formation, he will turn a blind eye to the coming and going of other people. That means..." Xiao Hua suddenly felt a joy in his heart, and he quickly asked, "This junior can also leave at any time?" "Of course." The Shaman King nodded affirmatively. "But when someone comes and goes, this old man will have to guide them." "That's great." Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said with a smile, "If that's the case, this junior can rest assured." "What?" The Shaman King smiled and asked, "Taoist, have you agreed to be the Shaman King of Million Meng Mountains?" Xiao Hua asked curiously, "Since this junior has become the Shaman King, how can I leave this place?" "Then Taoist has agreed to let Ziming's descendant be the Shaman King?" The Shaman King took a step forward and asked. Xiao Hua furrowed his brows, recalling his previous question. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "Speaking of which, this junior is a little surprised. Why did Ziming?" Hearing this, the Shaman King raised his hand and pointed at a dragon scale beside him. A dragon scale the size of a fist flew out, and on top of this dragon scale, there was a tiny 9-colored dot the size of a sesame seed. It shone like a bright star, and a rich life force rushed into the void from this 9-colored dot. The Shaman King glanced at this dragon scale kindly, and said with a smile, "Is this what Taoist is talking about?" Xiao Hua's expression turned cold, and he quickly raised his head. Sure enough, at this moment, there was some blood red appearing in the sky. It should be the Shaman King casting a spell to block the formation spirit's prying. Senior, what is the meaning of this? Xiaohua asked coldly. The Shaman King didn't answer, and instead pointed at the dragon scale again. The dragon scale landed on the dragon tail, and the blood red in the sky had already been torn apart by the powerful suppressive force. Nothing, this old man just has something to discuss with you. The Shaman King explained. However, this matter is the most important. After the discussion, this old man will send you away. Moreover, this matter came too suddenly. This old man also needs to think about it, and we'll talk about it at the end. What else do you have to say? Ask first. All right. Xiaohua looked around and asked, where is this place? Is it still the 16 layers of hell? Where is this place? This old man also doesn't know. The Shaman King shook his head. Because this old man has never left this place. However, Daoist came down from above this space. If above is the 15th layer of hell, then this place is the 16th layer of hell. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, cast a monthly vote, cast a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 5039. That's not it. Xiaohua shook his head. Above us were the hell of tongue pulling, the hell of scissors, the hell of tree of iron, the hell of mirror of retribution, the hell of steamers, the hell of bronze pillars, the hell of iceberg, the hell of volcano, and so on. If I'm not wrong, this should be the 17th layer of the hell of stone grindstone. And below us is the 18th layer of the hell of knife saw. The Shaman King pondered for a moment and said in a low voice, after I succeeded in the God-connecting technique, the first thing I wanted to know was how to break the suppression of this Buddhist formation. I obtained a subtle message from the God-connecting technique that the key to breaking the Buddhist formation is below me. If it's as Taoist said, then my God-connecting technique should be correct. Xiaohua lowered his head and looked down. Sure enough, numerous enormous millstone-like seals firmly confined the lower layer of the space. Layers of golden runes faintly emerged from the gaps between the millstone-like seals. Xiaohua couldn't release his soul awareness at the moment, so he didn't know how powerful these seals were. However, seeing that even the Shaman King was helpless against them, he clearly understood that he was probably powerless as well. So Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, Senior, this matter. Junior really can't help. Haha Taoist, don't worry. The Shaman King laughed and said, this is my fate. I never thought of escaping from here, so you don't have to think too much about it. If that's the case. Xiaohua thought and asked again. Senior, do you know the origin of this Buddhist formation that's suppressing you? I don't know. The Shaman King's answer was very straightforward. The truth of this matter has already been drowned in the long flow of time, and I can't leave this place, so I can't go to the Meng Mountains to investigate carefully. How can I know the origin of this Buddhist formation? But then, just as Xiaohua was disappointed, the Shaman King changed the topic again. From the bones and shaman cannon in Wuxia Ridge, as well as chatting with the formation spirit. What? You chatted with the formation spirit? Xiaohua was flabbergasted and asked in disbelief. The Shaman King smiled and said, how could Taoists forget? Didn't you talk to the formation spirit just now? God knows how many years. There's only one formation spirit and me here. If we don't talk, who do we talk? What's more, the formation spirit keeps trying to find some kind of human nature. If he doesn't ask me, who else can he ask? Then Senior didn't trick him into letting you go? Hearing about human nature, Xiaohua felt a headache coming on. Zhenren, you're overthinking things. The Shaman King laughed and said, he is only an array spirit and not the person who set up the array. If the Buddhist array is not broken, how can I leave? The fact that he can tolerate my soul being in the Wuxia Ridge is already his greatest tolerance. That said, from what I know, this Buddhist formation is a heaven-reaching spell formation that contains the power of a kiliacosm of worlds from the Buddhist schools, as well as the weight of the sea of bitterness. It's not just suppressing me, it's suppressing the legacy of soul cultivators. Of course, the Shaman King represents the legacy of millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountains. If you can suppress me, you can also suppress all soul cultivators. Because of this suppression, the legacy of my soul cultivation was lost. Time lapse is the name given to me by the previous shaman king. He wanted me to remember the humiliation of being a soul cultivator, and to find my inheritance through time. The smile on the shaman king's face slowly disappeared. But to this day I still haven't taken even half a step out of the Buddhist formation. I can't even see the slightest hope. Hearing this, Xiaohua wanted to say something, but he knew that everything was under the surveillance of the formation spirit. He couldn't reveal the slightest bit of information. Therefore, he shook his head slightly to express his sympathy. Since Senior doesn't know what the Buddhist formation that suppresses millions of Meng mountains is, then does Senior know about the demon formation that separates the Dawn Rain continent from the other 3 continents? Xiaohua asked tentatively. The shaman king was startled and asked curiously, "What 3 continents? Apart from the Dawn Rain continent, there are 3 other continents? Or is there another continent called the 3 continents?" If Senior doesn't know, then it's fine. Xiaohua was a little disappointed. He waved his hand and said, "Junior was just asking casually." Then, Xiaohua pointed at Ji Yu and Yi Yun, who were lying in the distance and covered with clothes, and said, "How are they now?" "They are fine. It's just that they seem to be cultivating some kind of secret technique, so it's not good to disturb them. That's why I imprisoned them first." The shaman king said curiously, "But who are they? When Reverend fell, did they also fall?" "Hehe, they are 2 infatuated people." Xiaohua briefly explained the cause of the matter. Hearing this, the shaman king sighed, and Ziming's eyes were filled with envy. But after a while, the shaman king's expression became tense again, and he said, "As Reverend said, these 2 Taoist cultivators are actually the disciples of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance at Wuming Mountains? Many cultivators of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance have been possessed by the devil race. This time, there are even divinity separation cultivators coming over. This has a great impact on the Dawn Rain continent's Taoist sects. Senior doesn't seem to know much about the Yilin continent, right?" Xiaohua asked tentatively. The shaman king nodded and said, "I've only heard about the situation there from the formation spirit, so I don't know much about it. Moreover, I'm most interested in the Wuming Mountains." Xiaohua thought for a while, and roughly explained the situation of the Yilin continent and Wuming Mountains. Finally, he said, "The Yilin continent is a place where Taoist sects flourish. Compared to the Yilin continent, the Dawn Rain continent is a lost land. But compared to the millions of Meng mountains, the Wuming Mountains is also a lost land of soul cultivators." Unfortunately, the shaman king only said 2 words, and didn't say anything else. But Xiaohua understood that the shaman king was regretting that his main body couldn't go to the Wuming Mountains, and couldn't spread the soul cultivator's orthodoxy in the Wuming Mountains. At this time, Ziming asked in a low voice, "Young master, did you cultivate your cultivation base on the Yilin continent?" "After I parted ways with young master at the Back Earth Stockade, I took over the management of the stockade. I didn't have time to ask about the worldly affairs. After I sorted out the affairs of the stockade, I heard about the outcome of the sword war, and young master, as a great contributor, was actually expelled by the Imperial Thunder sect. Then, what was even more inconceivable was that on the Dawn Rain continent, there was no more news about young master, as if young master had disappeared into thin air. It wasn't convenient for me to ask the Imperial Thunder sect, so I could only ask my trusted servant to ask big sister Hongxia." "Oh, what did she say?" Xiaohua's heart moved, and the expression in his eyes became complicated as he asked. Ziming gave a rare sweet smile and asked in return, "Young master, guess?" Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "My experience is quite bizarre. When I left the Dawn Rain continent, no one knew about it. Hongxia probably thought that I had met with misfortune long ago." "Hehe, young master is wrong." Ziming pursed her lips and smiled. "Big sister Hongxia didn't give me a clear answer, but she did give me a gatha. This gatha made me feel slightly relieved." "Oh, what gatha?" Xiaohua was a little puzzled. In this world there were indeed people who had telepathy, but he didn't think that after being separated by the immortal formation, Fairy Hongxia could still have telepathy with him. "Only in the mortal world. The fate is shallow. I don't know where to go." Ziming seemed to have a deep impression of this gatha, so she casually recited it and smiled. Although young master's whereabouts are uncertain, as long as you're alive, isn't this better than anything else? But this concubine really didn't expect that after 1,000 years, this concubine would actually inadvertently meet young master again. When Xiaohua heard this, he raised his head to look at the sky filled with flames, and said with a smile, "My privacy has already been seen by that fellow. Let's not talk about it today. When we reach the Huta stronghold, I will explain it to you in detail." Ziming of course knew what Xiaohua was talking about, and her face unconsciously turned even redder. She lowered her head and said, "If young master is going to the Huta stronghold, you still need to inform Elder Wu first, so that he won't be caught off guard." Xiaohua's face revealed a trace of awkwardness. Just as he was about to explain, the Shaman King also frowned, and said in a low voice, "Daoist, this matter still needs to be discussed at length. Wait for me to gather the funds first." Xiaohua helplessly smiled and said, "Senior is thinking too much." Junior originally wanted to give Ziming a surprise, but since Junior going to the Huta stronghold will cause some misunderstanding, then I'll ask Elder Wu of the Huta stronghold to come out with the soul-falling lamp. Soul-falling lamp? The Shaman King was slightly stunned, and asked curiously, "What do you want the soul-falling lamp for?" On the other hand, Ziming's body suddenly shook, and her face turned pale. Her eyes looked at Xiaohua, and she said in disbelief, Young master, are you talking about Ziyi?" And Xiaohua nodded at her, and said with a smile, "This is your biggest regret in this life. This Xiao can also be considered as compensation for you. However, this Xiao wants to ask, did you preserve Ziya's body well?" "Of course, it's in a secret place in the ancestral hall. Elder Wu knows." As Ziming spoke, her small hands were tightly clenched, and her knuckles were white. Her teeth were also tightly biting her lips, not daring to cry out in alarm, and not daring to let tears of joy flow down. She was not clear about what level Xiaohua's cultivation had reached, but she was naturally sensitive to Xiaohua's shaman body. She knew that Xiaohua was no longer the same as before, and 1,000 years of cultivation had already far exceeded her imagination. However, her imagination still did not surpass Xiaohua's strength. She did not dare to imagine what level Xiaohua's method of saving Ziyi was at in this world. However, Ziming clearly knew that this kind of divine ability, this kind of strength must be hidden from the formation spirit. If the formation spirit knew that Xiaohua had such a heaven-defying soul cultivation strength, it was likely that great waves would arise. Ziyi? The Shaman King obviously did not know who Ziyi was, and he was somewhat puzzled. Ziming gave him a look and said with a smile, "Shaman King, this is Junior's private matter. Later, Junior will explain in detail to Senior." "Haha, that's good. Then this old man can rest assured." The Shaman King naturally felt somewhat guilty about the matter of sacrificing Ziming. Seeing that Ziyi and Xiaohua had a common secret, he also laughed out loud. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. This is far beyond what this junior can achieve. If you call this junior senior, don't you think you are neglecting the essentials and focusing on the trifles? Alas. The Shaman King sighed and said, "Although I can't take half a step, I've seen countless heroes, but which one of them is as humble as Taoist? If he didn't have a solid foundation, a strong defense, confidence, and breadth of mind, how could he be so magnanimous? If Shenren's cultivation is not successful, then who can achieve great success?" "Senior, please don't flatter me," Xiaohua said with a smile. "The more Junior cultivates, the more I understand the vastness of the world, and the more fearful I feel in my heart. I cultivate even more nervously, and even if I want to be bossy and domineering, I can't. I already knew that young master could reach this stage when I saw young master in the Sky Patrol City." Ziming also sighed with emotion. "But I didn't expect this day to come so soon." "Oh Ziming." Xiaohua turned to Ziming and said, "This Xiao's sect is called the Fortune Gate. In the future, This Xiao will send the Fortune Gate's sect master to contact you. Fortune Gate? Ziming was stunned, and looked at Xiaohua from head to toe, and asked curiously, "Didn't young master just return to Meng Mountains? How did you know that there is a Fortune Gate on the Dawn Rain mainland that worships Taoist Xiao?" Ah. Xiaohua was also stunned and asked curiously, "There is also a Fortune Gate on the Dawn Rain mainland?" Speaking of me, Xiaohua immediately thought of Zhong Haoran, Fei Yunshu, Zhong Zhan, Qinji, and Zhong Pei. If there was no accident, this Fortune Gate that worships Taoist Xiao was established by them. Xiaohua didn't expect that Zhong Haoran, who was merely a foundation establishment cultivator, would be able to do such a big thing. Yes. Ziming nodded and said, "Of course there is a Fortune Gate on the Dawn Rain mainland, but this Fortune Gate is different from ordinary sects, and is not a real sect. It can be considered an alliance. It appeared about 40 years after young master went missing, and now it can be considered to have developed for several hundred years, and has some scale." "Oh, what do you mean?" Xiaohua originally thought that it was Zhong Haoran who established the Fortune Gate, but when he heard Ziming's words, it seemed to be different from what he thought. He asked curiously, "Why is the Fortune Gate an alliance?" It can't be considered an alliance, because there is no such thing as an alliance leader, and there are no common interests between them. Ziming explained. However, these sects all worship young master, and treat Taoist Xiao as their own sect master. Ziming naturally knew a lot about Xiaohua, and was about to slowly explain when the shaman king beside him coughed twice, and said, "It won't be too late to talk about these things after you return." Taoist Xiao. This old man doesn't have much time left, and now is the time when the formation spirit's monitoring is relatively weak. This old man should discuss the most important matter with you first, okay? While speaking, the shaman king opened his mouth, and a mouthful of dark green blood essence spurted out. Along with the shaman king's chanting, green seal characters that weren't much bigger than ants appeared in midair. Different from the Tao Gate's incantation, the green seal characters didn't fall into the blood essence, but the blood essence suddenly exploded, and turned into a blood net that covered the green seal characters. The shaman king's chanting didn't just resound in the ears, but in Xiaohua's soul. Naturally, following the rhythm, layers of blood runes appeared above everyone's heads. They were like fish that avoided the suppressive force that filled the space. They turned into blood clouds that blocked the sky that looked like it was made of fire. Xiaohua slightly frowned, because he already sensed that the shaman king's blood traces contained soul power, and the formation of the green seal characters also affected the shaman king's lifespan. Looks like. Xiaohua looked at the shaman king's human face and dragon tail, and thought to himself, the shaman king's body is still not a true shaman body, and still can't use the true green seal characters. Taoist. The shaman king looked at the blood clouds somewhat cautiously, and didn't say anything, but instead transmitted his voice. "This matter is of great importance. This old man doesn't dare to be careless. Why don't you try transmitting your voice?" The transmission the shaman king spoke of was naturally the transmission of soul techniques. Xiaohua urged his weak soul power and replied, "Of course, I don't know what Senior wants to discuss with Junior." Naturally, it's the next shaman king. The shaman king smiled slightly, and a trace of hope appeared in his eyes. His expression became increasingly calm, as if he already had a plan. Xiaohua pondered for a moment, then raised his head and looked at the shaman king. Staring at the shaman king's eyes, he asked word by word, "Senior." Although Senior has already explained it earlier, it wasn't particularly detailed. Junior still doesn't understand the birth of the shaman king. What does it have to do with me? The shaman king wasn't surprised, and he didn't avoid Xiaohua's questioning gaze. His expression remained the same, and his smile didn't change. He replied, "Speaking of this matter, this old man has to explain to Taoists the origin of the shaman king of Million Meng Mountains, as well as the birth of the shaman king." At this moment, Xiaohua couldn't use any special divine ability, so he could only rely on observing the shaman king's body language to determine the truth of the matter. He also knew that the shaman king had lived for an unknown number of years, just like the elders of the Dragon Island. If the shaman king wanted to conceal some of the truth from him, even if Xiaohua stared at him without blinking, he might not be able to see anything. However, he still stared at the Shaman King, because there was always a trace of guilt towards Zimming in the bottom of his heart. Seeing Xiaohua didn't ask any questions, and instead stared at him, the Shaman King sighed in his heart. The matter this time was too unimaginable. Not to mention Xiaohua. The person involved, even he as a bystander, felt it was inconceivable. Therefore, the Shaman King followed the plan he had carefully pondered a moment ago, and told Xiaohua everything he had to conceal, and everything he had to say. Taoist, I believe you've also seen my current appearance. This is actually not my true body, but the body of the Shaman King. In other words, no matter when Taoist comes to the Shaman King village of Shaman God Ridge, the Shaman Kings you see will always be like this. This body doesn't look like one of the 12 great gods. Speaking of which, it might be the 13th great god of soul cultivators who has never been clear. But as for who this 13th great god is, even I, and even the previous Shaman Kings, don't know. Before being suppressed, how the Shaman Kings were found, and how they were selected, I don't know. Those are already ancient secrets that have long been discarded in the long river of time. There's no meaning in investigating them now. But I know clearly how the Shaman Kings were produced after being suppressed by the Buddhist formation. This is the most important task I have to complete after assuming the responsibility of being a Shaman King. It is also the core of my soul cultivation inheritance. Similarly, it is also the humiliation of us soul cultivators who have to endure humiliation and drag out an ignoble existence. After each generation of Shaman Kings takes the position, the first thing they have to practice is the God-connecting technique. Of course, because each generation of Shaman Kings is carefully selected and born with witchcraft luck, although this God-connecting technique is the supreme soul cultivation technique of my soul cultivators, each generation of Shaman Kings can successfully practice it. The only difference is the length of time. The God-connecting technique is different from ordinary soul cultivation techniques. The purpose of practicing the God-connecting technique is not for the Shaman King himself, but for the new generation of Shaman Kings. Once the God-connecting technique is successfully practiced, the first God-connecting technique of the Shaman King must be used to find the traces of the new Shaman King. I believe Taoist also knows that the God-connecting technique might not necessarily succeed, and the information obtained might not be true. But as long as the God-connecting technique is successfully practiced for the first time, the information obtained will definitely be true. This is also the reason why the Shaman Kings of Meng Mountains attach great importance to the first God-connecting technique. P.S. To all the fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, bookmark it, or tip it. Thank you, League Master. Only smoking half a cigarette from Nanjing. This chapter will be updated for you. Also, thank you to all the fellow Taoists who supported the third place. Chapter 5041. According to this old man's Magus father, the previous Magus king, when he first used the divine connection spell, he already knew that this old man was going to be born in the northwest of the Magus king's stronghold. Thus, before this old man was born, he had already sent the Magi of the Magus King's stronghold to patrol the northwest, searching every inch of land for traces of this old man. When they found this old man's tracks, they didn't waste any time and sent me here within 100 days. Of course, this old man has never left this place since then. Xiaohua furrowed his brows. He looked at the golden dragon scales on the Shaman King's waist and asked curiously, "Then, what about the first time Senior performed the God-linking technique?" When I performed the God-linking technique for the first time, I received two completely different messages. The Shaman King seemed to be recalling something, but he said in a hurry. One was that the new Shaman King was going to be born in Shaman King's stronghold, and the other message was that the new Shaman King was not going to be born in Meng Mountains. At that time, I was struck dumb, as these two messages were obviously different. That was why I thought my God-linking technique had failed. After all, the Shaman King was blessed by the 12 gods, and it was rare for him to fail in his God-linking technique. However, when I performed the God-linking technique for the first time, and for the sake of finding a new Shaman King, I failed miserably. That really made me disheartened. What happened after that? Xiaohua asked with great interest. To tell you the truth, Reverend, the Shaman King answered. After that, I didn't dare to use the God-linking technique to find a new Shaman King. Instead, I used it in other places. When my God-linking technique had reached a certain level, and I was able to successfully judge most of the ordinary things, only then did I perform it for the second time. The second time I performed it was a success, and it showed that the new Shaman King of Meng Mountains would be born in the vicinity of Huta Stronghold. Only then did I let out a sigh of relief. However, when the Shaman King appeared, I still couldn't see it. Could it be? Xiaohua thought for a moment, then blurted out. Senior only got the real time after this junior appeared. The Shaman King gave Xiaohua a meaningful glance, nodded, and said, What Daoist said is right. That day, the reason I unleashed the divine connection technique was for the sake of the lives of millions of people in Meng Mountains. But I could sense that Reverend is in Huta Stronghold, and that he is destined to be a soul cultivator. Therefore, I asked Jianji to return at top speed and hand the Grand Magus King's medallion to Reverend. I hope Reverend will have a chance to visit Magus King's stronghold, so I can thank Reverend in person. But after Jianji left, Wu Grandmasters of Zhuwu village also left. I suddenly thought of the new Magus King who would appear in Huta village in the future, so I performed the God-connecting magic again. Senior, I'm afraid it's not good for your shaman body to continuously use the God-connecting technique. Xiaohua hit the nail on the head. Sigh indeed. The Shaman King lowered his head to look at his shaman body and said helplessly, Logically speaking, this shaman body of mine was born from the shaman body and possesses the karmic luck of a soul cultivator. But after being suppressed for so many years, I actually sensed a decline. Shaman body is shaman body and soul body is soul body. The primordial shaman arts have been lost, so it would be strange if Senior's shaman body didn't decline. Xiaohua said, then raised his head to look at the sky. Is this the plan of the Buddhist kingdom? Perhaps the next Shaman King won't live for so long. Speaking of the next Shaman King, Xiaohua's heart trembled. He could ignore the previous Shaman King, and he could also ignore the current Shaman King, but the future Shaman King was his descendant. So Xiaohua couldn't ignore it anymore? All of a sudden, Xiaohua had a feeling that he had boarded a pirate ship. Hee Taoist, let's get back to the topic. The Shaman King was afraid that if he said too much, it would arouse Xiaohua's disgust, so he quickly changed the topic and said, When I performed the God-connecting magic for the second time for the new Shaman King, I suddenly realized that the new Shaman King would be born within 1,000 years. And the location was actually back to Wuxia Ridge. This time, I was both surprised and happy, and I hurriedly made all the preparations to welcome the new Shaman King. However, 100 years ago, my soul body issued an order in the Shaman King's stronghold, and half of the Shaman Kings were in the vicinity of Wuxia Ridge looking for traces of the new Shaman King. The Shaman King continued. Of course, 100 years was a bit too early, but the Shaman Kings didn't find any useful information. Moreover, this information was extremely contradictory with the earlier information from Huta Stronghold, so I doubted that this information was correct. Then 10 years ago, I performed the God-connecting magic again, and I actually discovered that the birth of the new Shaman King was imminent. But the location changed again, and it was actually near the space suppression. Moreover, Huta Stronghold also faintly appeared. I suddenly understood that the birth of the new Shaman King was different from the ordinary Shaman Kings, and he should have been born long ago, and he might even be a person with great magical powers. His location was not confirmed, and this person might be related to Huta Stronghold. Therefore, I hurriedly searched for the soul warriors of Huta Stronghold, and asked the shaman elders and G-man of Huta Stronghold to come to Wuxia Ridge. When I met Jianji and Ziming, I discovered that G-man of Huta Stronghold had been changed long ago, and I asked Jianji for a long time, but I didn't find anything. Jianji had important matters to attend to in Wuxia Ridge, so I left Ziming alone in Wuxia Ridge. However, a few years ago, I sensed something again, so I negotiated with the Array Spirit, and sent Ziming into this space suppression, and he stayed there until today. When you arrived at the Buddhist formation, the Shaman King's token was activated by you, and I was also very surprised. Because the Shaman King's token can't be activated so easily. And I sensed it through the Buddhist formation. I suddenly thought of the new Shaman King. And I thought that you were the new Shaman King, so I immediately activated my soul power to bring you down from the sea of bitterness. But when I was halfway there, I was stopped by the array spirit with the Buddhist formation. And after a brief moment, Ziming disappeared as well. When you and Ziming reappeared, I finally understood that if you weren't the new Shaman King, then you and Ziming's offspring would be the new Shaman King. In other words, when I first used the God conjuring technique, I was half right. Since my God conjuring technique wasn't completely wrong then, why is the new Shaman King not born in Million Meng Mountains? Before you woke up, I hurriedly used the God conjuring technique again, and I finally realized that my God conjuring technique wasn't wrong. The new Shaman King is really not born in Million Meng Mountains, and not even in Dawn Rain Continent. Xiaohua was startled, and he blurted out, "If it's not born here, then where? Is this the reason why you took out the newborn from Ziming's body?" "That's right." The Shaman King nodded his head solemnly, still transmitting his voice. "That's right. I've thought it through. All the generations of Shaman Kings of Million Meng Mountains have been suppressed in this Buddhist formation, and they have never left this place. It's not only the sorrow of life, but also the sorrow of soul cultivators. If we don't change and let the Buddhist formation suppress us generation after generation, the inheritance of Million Meng Mountains will definitely be destroyed. Therefore, I must not let the new Shaman King be born in this Buddhist formation." Of course, I didn't think too much about where the new Shaman King would be born, but since you came from Yilin Continent, I thought, if possible, I'll use my soul cultivation secret technique and let the Shaman King be born in Yilin Continent. This is also the reason why I asked you about the situation in Yilin Continent. Damn it! Xiaohua cursed in a low voice. If that's the case, just let me take Ziming away. Does Reverend have the confidence to take Ziming away under the protection of the formation spirit? The Shaman King smiled faintly, not angered by Xiaohua's cursing. Isn't it possible now? Xiaohua frowned. But after leaving this place, can Ziming give birth to a new Shaman King for Million Meng Mountains? The Shaman King asked again. Xiaohua was speechless. When I'm looking for the next Shaman King, I didn't hide it from the formation spirit. However, this formation spirit has no humanity, and doesn't know that it has indirectly contributed to the birth of the Shaman King. But the formation spirit knows that the new Shaman King has already appeared, and it won't let Ziming, who is pregnant with the Shaman King, leave this place. The Shaman King explained, only by taking the new Shaman King out of Ziming's body will Ziming be able to leave this place. Otherwise, Ziming can only leave after the new Shaman King is pregnant for 10 months. Xiaohua suddenly felt powerless. He was already a human Mahayana cultivator with 10th grade elemental energy, and could even ascend to immortality at any time. It seemed like his fate was in his hands, but in reality, how much could he do? Facing so many strong people in the world, he was still an ant. Even if it was an inhumane formation spirit, he didn't have any power to resist, because the formation spirit relied on Mount Meru and the 3,000 great worlds. It was the power of the Buddhist nation, the will of the Buddhist nation. Even if one of his clones was already the Maitreya Buddha. Looking at the dragon scale on the waist of the Shaman King, Xiaohua clearly knew that the new Shaman King was inside the dragon scale, and that was his son. Although the appearance of this son was a beautiful mistake, it was still his son. A new life, a new hope, a new beginning. But facing this new life, he seemed. No, he definitely didn't have the ability to decide his future, whether it was in the hands of the Shaman King, or under the suppression of the formation spirit. He couldn't even do anything for his future. Becoming the Shaman King was his destiny, and bearing the inheritance of millions of Meng Mountains was also his destiny. It was as if before he was even born, an extremely difficult path had already appeared in front of him. The hope of millions of people in Meng Mountains and Wuming Mountain Range was already on his shoulders. Xiaohua's mouth was filled with bitterness. After a while, Xiaohua asked faintly, "If that's the case, what else does Senior want to discuss with me?" P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, vote for it. give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Chapter 5042. Reverend is the source of the new Shaman King's bloodline. Although I don't know why the Shaman God arranged this, but the Shaman King said earnestly, since it's already like this, I can't not tell Reverend clearly. This is the arrangement of fate's hands, and I need Reverend's consent. I hope Reverend won't have any resentment in your heart. Speaking of resentment, it's not that bad. Xiaohua shook his head and said, but it's impossible for me to not think about it. As Senior said, since it's already like this, and the Million Meng Mountains really need a new Shaman King, then I can only agree. All right. Hearing this, the Shaman King bowed and said, I thank Reverend on behalf of the 12 great gods and the million people of Meng Mountains. The Shaman King was an unknown great god, so how could Xiaohua dare to let the Shaman King bow? He quickly returned the bow and said, I don't dare. I also understand soul cultivation. This is something I should sacrifice. The Shaman King stood up, looked up in a panic and said, after saying so much, it's finally time to discuss with Reverend. Oh, what do you need me to do? Xiaohua was a bit stunned, because the Shaman King didn't send him a voice transmission, but spoke in front of Ziming. Senior, please say it. Ziming obviously knew that the Shaman King was discussing something important with Xiaohua. Previously he only lowered his head, but now, after hearing the Shaman King's words, he raised his head and looked at the Shaman King blankly. The Shaman King looked at Xiaohua, then looked at Ziming and said kindly, as a father and mother, I naturally have to give my child a name. Ziming jumped, his face flushed red. Xiaohua was also a bit awkward. He thought for a while and asked, is it a pet name or a shaman name? Reverend actually knows a shaman name? The Shaman King was a bit stunned. Xiaohua nodded. I still know a lot. Senior will understand in the future. Oh. The Shaman King was stunned. After thinking for a while he nodded and said, I originally wanted you to give him a pet name, but since Reverend said so, then let's just give him a shaman name. Xiaohua seemed to already have a plan. He said seriously, Senior's life is sorrowful. Since birth, you were suppressed, you got the shaman name Wei, which means time flies. Meanwhile, the new Shaman King would push aside the sun and the moon to see a new life, and create a vast world. Thus, it could be said to be bright. The word light also implies that the soul cultivator's legacy is withered and disorderly, but when the shackles are broken, the path of soul cultivator will be bright and broad. Great! The Shaman King was overjoyed when he heard that. He clapped his hands and said, Zhenren, this shaman name is excellent. This old man is ashamed of his inferiority. The next Shaman King will be named Ming. Thank you for the name, young master. Ziming was also overjoyed. After all, there was a Ming in her name. Xiaohua naming her like this was to commemorate Ziming. Ziming originally didn't care about her sacrifice, but now she was even more grateful. The Shaman King did not wait for Ziming to finish speaking and hurriedly sent a voice transmission to urge him. Spiritual Master, do you have any other instructions? Or is there anything else you want to leave for the new Shaman King? Can I? Xiaohua was slightly taken aback. Aren't you sending him into reincarnation? The Shaman King didn't have time to explain and only transmitted his voice. You can stay here or in the Huda stronghold. However, following him into reincarnation has a different meaning. After all, it can be counted as a keepsake. As for whether the things you leave behind can follow him, I don't know. I just want to remind Spiritual Master that you have this choice. There were countless treasures in Xiaohua's space. He wished he could leave everything to his descendants. Unfortunately, the space couldn't be opened now. Xiaohua had nothing on him except for the magic treasures he prepared for himself. However, Xiaohua still reached into his bosom and pulled out 2 items. One was a milky white jade bottle without any writing on it. Xiaohua glanced at it, and knew that it was some spirit awakening fluid. It was refined by him in the hidden immortal continent for the descendants of the Zeng family in Fancheng County of Shuzhou's Fengxiang country. It might have been inadvertently taken out of the space when he was refining his magic treasure. However, since it was inadvertent, Xiaohua's heart was moved again. He looked at the jade bottle meaningfully, and raised his hand to urge his soul power to write the word, Xiao, on the bottom of the jade bottle. This word seemed simple, but every stroke was formed by a green seal character. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to understand it. The other thing in Xiaohua's hand was a spirit storage bag. It was the winged sky strange beast that Xiaohua obtained in the auction house in Tong Lake City. That day he was in a hurry and under the watchful eyes of everyone. Xiaohua took the spirit storage bag and put it in his chest, ignoring it. Xiaohua looked at these two things and didn't hesitate. He immediately handed them to the Shaman King and said, "This junior doesn't have anything else on him. I'm afraid I only have these two things. I don't know if they are suitable." The Shaman King asked about the origin of the two things and said with a bitter smile, "This old man just wants a keepsake or something like that. If this pill elixir and soul beast goes through reincarnation, I'm afraid there will be some changes. Then forget it." Xiaohua heard and hurriedly withdrew his hand. The Shaman King was the same as Xiaohua. His heart was moved and he reached out to take the two things. He said with a smile, "Since Spiritual Master doesn't have anything else on him, you can still take these two things out. Maybe there is some meaning behind it. Then this old man will clearly thank Spiritual Master." As he spoke, the Shaman King put the pill elixir and the spirit storage bag into the dragon scale. He then looked up and said, "There isn't much time left. This old man will send you out now. You can wait outside for a day. If Ziming doesn't go out, then you don't have to wait anymore." "Why?" Xiaohua was anxious and couldn't help but blurt out. This question was extremely stupid, but in Ziming's ears, it was abnormally sweet. Ziming got up and walked in front of Xiaohua. He stared at Xiaohua for a moment, then opened his arms and hugged Xiaohua willingly. He whispered in his ear, "Forever. Forever." Xiaohua's heart ached. He knew what Ziming meant by these two words. Moreover, he also understood that Ziming probably wouldn't be able to walk out of this space of suppression. After Ziming let go of Xiaohua, the Shaman King looked at the flame that had already appeared above his head and said in a low voice, "This old man will send you to the foothills of the Huta stronghold. You just wait there." "Senior." Xiaohua looked at Ziming's satisfied expression and hurriedly asked the Shaman King, "Can this junior come here again in the future? If you want to, you can go to the Shaman King's stronghold to find this old man's soul body." The Shaman King was also very satisfied with Xiaohua's affection and righteousness. He smiled and said, "When Taoist sees the soul body, this old man will know. Of course, if the new Shaman King is really a Shaman King, then the new Shaman King has already inherited the luck of my soul cultivator. As the source of the bloodline, Taoist should also be able to sense the existence of this space. If the formation spirit doesn't stop you, you should be able to directly come here." "Okay, this junior understands." Xiaohua nodded solemnly and said word by word, "If this junior comes again, I will definitely give senior a pleasant surprise." "This old man has never been so surprised in this life." The Shaman King smiled and said, "I hope Taoist's next surprise will be even greater than today's." "Of course, senior, please rest assured." Xiaohua didn't dare to say anything about the soul cultivator's inheritance under the suppression of the Buddhist formation. He only said vaguely, "Senior can send this junior out now." As he spoke, Xiaohua walked to the side with large strides and grabbed Jiyu and Yiyin in each hand. "Okay." The Shaman King also didn't dare to be negligent. He agreed and opened his mouth again, spitting out another mouthful of blood essence. Just like before, the green seal text was activated, and a several feet long dark green crack was strangely torn open in the void. At this moment, wong wong, a rumbling sound descended from the sky. More than 10 balls of flame transformed into the image of the ferocious Buddhist protector, and also fell into the void crack. The entire void crack trembled and slowly shrank. "Hee, this old man wants to send Taoist Xiao out. Could it be that you want to stop me?" The Shaman King asked with a smile. "Sure, what the hell were you doing just now?" The formation spirit's voice sounded exactly the same as the Shaman King's, almost indistinguishable. The Shaman King smiled and said, "Nothing. I was thinking of giving a name to my newly born human nature." "Oh right, don't you know? Everyone in my human race has a name." For example, I am called Sure. You don't seem to have a name yet? Do you want me to give you a name? Oh, what do you think is a good name for me? Obviously, the formation spirit was attracted by the name. Although the suppressing force didn't decrease, the dozens of balls of flame had disappeared, and the void crack had stabilized. Xiaohua didn't hesitate. Carrying a man and a woman whose body was constantly rippling, he stepped into the void crack with steady steps. When the suppressing force of the formation spirit disappeared, he didn't hesitate to activate the art of going south, going north, teleporting toward millions of Meng mountains. This was the flying colorful phoenix that broke the jade cage, the flood dragon that broke the golden lock, and the suppression of Mount Sumeru. Even if he met the formation spirit again in millions of Meng mountains, Xiaohua had absolute confidence that he could beat it black and blue, and teach it how to write the word human nature. Going south, going north. The Shaman King naturally paid attention to Xiaohua's departure. When he saw Xiaohua using the art of going south, going north, going south, going north, he couldn't help but cry out in his mind, as if he understood Xiaohua's vague reminder. The Shaman King casually said a few more words to the formation spirit. After making up a few names that the formation spirit was extremely dissatisfied with, he smiled and said, "The man has left, so the woman should leave as well, right? Let this old man send this girl away, then I'll think of a good name for you." No. The figure of the formation spirit appeared from the flame, looking exactly the same as the Shaman King. It shook its head and said, "If the new Shaman King doesn't appear, none of you can leave?" Strange. The Shaman King said in disbelief. "This matter has nothing to do with this girl. Why don't you let her go?" "Oh, didn't you let that girl go earlier?" P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, bookmark, tip, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 50-43. There was no expression on the array spirit's face, but it was somewhat surprised. It asked, "That girl has nothing to do with the new Shaman King. Why don't you let her go?" The Shaman King was flustered and exasperated. "But this girl has nothing to do with the new Shaman King. How can it have nothing to do with her?" The array spirit was even more confused. "If it has nothing to do with her, then why did you let her wait here for 10 years? Who is the new Shaman King? Why don't I know?" The Shaman King rolled his eyes and asked curiously. "Humph." The array spirit sneered. It looked at the Shaman King's waist and said, "I don't know anything else, but the new Shaman King has appeared. This matter, I know it better than anyone. He was born to be suppressed by me." The Shaman King was helpless. He knew the array spirit very well, and at the same time he knew that he couldn't be compared to Jiuxia's glib tongue. Jiuxia could persuade the array spirit to let her go, but he couldn't. However, he was prepared for the worst-case scenario. He argued with the array spirit for a full hour before looking at Ziming apologetically. "Child, I've wronged you." Ziming smiled sweetly and said, "Shaman King, what are you saying? Previously, I didn't know and thought that you were in the Shaman King stronghold. Only when I came here did I understand that you have been suppressed here for the sake of my soul cultivation inheritance. The grievances you have suffered, I can't even compare to 1/10,000th of it. Besides, since I have to bear an undeserved reputation, how can I not pay some price?" "That's good." The Shaman King nodded. He looked at the direction of the space where the Huta stronghold was and said in a low voice, "If you don't go out, Daoist Xiao, it'll be easier to deal with him." Ziming's face was slightly red, but there was some regret in her eyes. She knew that if she didn't go back, Xiaohua might not mention the new Shaman King to the Shaman Elder. However, if she didn't hear Xiaohua admit it in front of the Shaman Elder, she was somewhat unwilling in her heart. A woman's heart, as strong as the Shaman King, still couldn't completely understand it. After arguing for a long time, the array spirit seemed to be tired. Its figure flashed and disappeared. It was unknown whether it was pondering human nature or pondering a new name. The Shaman King also seemed to be tired. He stood there like a statue and didn't move for half a day. Ziming had already stayed in this space for 10 years, so he was naturally familiar with it. He circulated his soul force and quietly cultivated. Time passed slowly. It was unknown when the Shaman King woke up. That dragon tail began to slightly sway at the bottom of the space. Strands of dim light rose like ripples on the millstone seal. Ziming opened her eyes and sensed strands of the aura of the nether blood sea. She was a little surprised, but she didn't ask anything. She took a few glances and closed her eyes again. Ziming had originally thought that the Shaman King was planning something, and had casually swung his dragon tail. But who would have thought that this casual action of the Shaman King would go on for 10 whole days? Seeing that the aura of the nether blood sea was getting thicker and thicker, even the formation spirit revealed itself. Looking at the whirlpool that was already dozens of feet in size, it asked curiously, "What are you doing?" "What?" Venerable Wu rolled his eyes at formation spirit and said coldly, "I want to see how you intercepted my Sorcerer King token that day. Logically speaking, the nether energy of my soul cultivation is thicker than the aura of the sea of bitterness of the Buddhist kingdom. How could it be intercepted by you?" "Haha." Formation spirit laughed. "The nether blood sea of millions of Meng mountains was suppressed by my sea of bitterness. How could your Sorcerer King token surpass the 18 levels of hell? You'd better not think blindly." "No." Venerable Wu shook his head firmly. "I must find a way to restrain the sea of bitterness." "Tis." Formation spirit curled its lips and said, "How dare you call yourself an old man in front of me? I don't know how much older I am than you." Venerable Wu glared at formation spirit, and didn't say anything else. His dragon tail was still swinging, and his eyebrows were tightly knitted, as if he was really thinking hard. "Boring." Formation spirit looked at Venerable Wu and muttered, then said to Ziming, "Ziming, what do you think my name should be?" Ziming thought for a moment, then said seriously, "All names are given by their parents. If you want a name, you can ask your parents. Why are you asking me?" "Parents?" Formation spirit was stunned and asked curiously, "Who are my parents?" "I don't know." "Even you don't know, how could I know?" Ziming asked again. Then she rolled her eyes and said with a smile, "Of course, if you want me to help you, let me out first. I'll go to millions of Meng mountains to help you find." "Tisk, do you think I'm stupid?" Formation spirit sneered. "You can't leave until you see the new Sorcerer King." "It doesn't matter." Ziming shrugged and said, "My parents know I'm here anyway. I'll go back and find them later." "Where are my parents?" Formation spirit seemed to be crying, but the expression on her face was still as cold as ice. As he shouted, the erased spirit disappeared again. He was afraid that he had really gone to find his parents. The Shaman King raised his eyebrows. Suddenly, the golden dragon scale on his waist silently fell into the whirlpool. Seeing the dragon scale fall, the Shaman King spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood essence into it, and activated the green seal text again. Buzz buzz. A strange sound was heard. Gradually, pitch-black lotus petals that looked like netherworld lotuses appeared out of thin air. "Death, what are you doing?" Formation spirit suddenly appeared and looked at the black lotus petals in disbelief. She exclaimed, You actually interfered with reincarnation. Don't you want to live anymore? Not good." The new Sorcerer King. Boom. Amidst the flames, a layer of the sea of bitterness fell from the sky and smashed onto the petals of the nether lotus. Whoosh! Rays of Buddhist light that were like wheels appeared. Within the Buddhist light, dragon scales were revealed, and the 9 layers of brilliance within the dragon scales were also revealed. Layers of vitality were covered by the Buddhist light. Damn it! Seeing this, the Shaman King couldn't help but curse. The strange green light around his body condensed into a huge green seal script. This green seal script let out an obscure sound, and a huge hurricane-like force was generated out of nowhere. The moment this force appeared, the entire sealed space shook. The space was folded into thousands of layers, and each layer revealed the light shadows of the 12 great gods. Each layer revealed the endless Wuming mountain range. However, before this force could land on the Buddha's light, the shadow of Mount Sumeru appeared with a boom and fell down as if it was real. Wherever it went, the space was flattened, the light and shadow were shattered, and the endless mountain range was also cut off. Roar! Seeing that he was about to fail, the Sorcerer King roared unwillingly. Woo! A strange whistling sound of wind came from the flat space. Amidst the twisting light and shadow, a tall and sturdy, extraordinarily handsome young man stepped out of the light and shadow. As soon as this young man appeared, the Shaman King's body expanded with a boom. As if he was splitting the sky and splitting the earth, he directly opened up the space. Even Mount Meru was lifted up. The roar of heaven and earth was loud. Swish. In the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint, a blood shadow covered in dark green heavenly patterns flew out from the human-faced dragon tail and entered the young man's body. Rumbling sounds of thunder emerged from the young man's body. And then he turned into a light shadow and rushed into the rotating wheel. "Sure, what are you doing?" The spirit of the array shouted angrily. "This is human nature." The young man turned his head slightly. His eyebrows revealed unparalleled tenacity. His thin lips opened and said, "This is something you will never understand in this lifetime." Along with this voice, boom! The young man's soul shattered and turned into thousands of ripple-like soul strands. These soul strands tore apart the wheel condensed from Buddha's light and blocked the previous vortex. The thousands of soul strands were like boiling water, extremely tumbling. Everything happened in a flash. Ziming didn't have any reaction at all. Under the huge force, she was even pushed to the edge of the space. However, this didn't stop her from staring at the tumbling soul strands. Over there, Ziming's familiar aura of Huta God was rapidly fading away. The Sorcerer King's heroic voice came from inside. "Haha, this old man understands." The new Sorcerer King Ming was indeed born here. But he wasn't born here, nor was he born in Xiaoyu continent. Even more so, he won't be born in Yilan continent. As for where he transmigrated into a human body, that will depend on the grace of Huta God. Looks like this old man didn't make a mistake when he used the divine connection technique for the first time. Damn it! The array spirit was actually angry and shouted, "Whether you're wrong or not, this old man doesn't know. What this old man knows is that your soul has been scattered, and you can't even reincarnate." "I'm willing." The Sorcerer King's voice became smaller and smaller, and the soul strands became fewer and fewer. Looking at the human-faced dragon tail that propped up Mount Meru, it had now turned into an indomitable god statue, and could no longer move. However, the Sorcerer King's voice still lingered around this god statue. "Only when you know how to give up can you understand human nature. Spirit, you may not understand." After saying that, the Sorcerer King's soul turned into the last wisp of soul power, and tore apart the Buddhist sect's reincarnation power. The soul cultivator's nether lotus petals slowly closed, and the dragon scales with 9 colors also disappeared without a trace. Alas! The array spirit looked a little lonely as it stood there. It looked at the nether blood sea that was slowly disappearing, and then looked at the deity statue with a human face and a dragon tail that did not have any breath. It sighed. "Is this human nature? Why don't I understand?" Along with this voice, the array spirit's figure slowly disappeared. I can go now, right?" Ziming held back his sadness and hurriedly shouted out. Unfortunately, the array spirit didn't care about Ziming at all, as if it was reminiscing about the past, and also as if it felt that Ziming's words weren't worth it at all. Ziming's voice seemed to resound in the empty cave, and didn't disperse for a long time. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 5044. Xiaohua had just escaped from the sealed space of Mount Meru. As soon as he sensed the aura of the millions of Ming mountains, he immediately rushed out of the space with the art of going south, going north. Before he could fly out of the teleportation tunnel, he immediately unleashed the sword gourd. Taoist Witch, Thunder Immortal, Feng Wu, and the other clones were also summoned out of his body. Damn it! As soon as Taoist Witch and the others came out of their bodies, they immediately knew what had happened to Xiaohua. They were all filled with righteous indignation. They stood in the air and unleashed their divine abilities, preparing to attack the formation spirit. Unfortunately, whether it was Xiaohua's divine sense, Taoist Witch's soul sense, or Feng Wu's divine sense, None of them could sense the location of the sealed space. What welcomed them was the rumbling sound of thunder high up in the sky. The laws of heaven and earth could no longer tolerate Xiaohua staying in the mortal world again and again, and began to urge him. Humph. Xiaohua snorted coldly. While controlling his immortal energy to stabilize the immortal talisman, he also used the secret technique of Qingqiu Mountain to desperately suppress his realm. Fortunately, when he used both methods simultaneously, the thunder gradually disappeared, and everything returned to normal. Xiaohua took a deep breath, closed his eyes slightly, and said in a low voice, "Dawn Rain Mainland, I'm back." In an instant, all kinds of memories, thoughts rushed into Xiaohua's mind like 10,000 galloping horses. Xiaohua had never thought that he would be so excited when he returned to Dawn Rain Mainland. After half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua finally calmed down. Huang Tong whispered, "Fellow Taoist, the current plan is to prioritize the billions of lives in the 3 continents. Let's go and break the formation." "What formation?" Thunder Immortal asked curiously. "We don't even know if the formation core of the immortal formation is heaven, earth, and human. How do we break the formation?" "That's right." Taoist, which also frowned and said, "Fellow Taoist, your 5 elements wishful staff is not complete yet. Buddha Mithriya, the world sovereign, Reverend Yun, and Celestial seem to have the power to attack. If the 3 peaks are not the formation core, won't we be dumbfounded? I think it's better to take the long view." Xiaohua nodded and replied, "Fellow Taoists, you're all right. Back when we were in the Wuming Mountain Range, I had already made up my mind. Fellow Taoist Feng Wu, you will go to the Tai Ching sect in Ming Kingdom and search for the heaven, earth, and mortal peaks. You will see if there are any traces of immortal formations on the peaks. Fellow Taoist Lei, take the Kunlun mirror to the netherworld and retrieve the metal earth magnetic field. I's blood essence has been nourished in the metal earth magnetic field for hundreds of years. With your power, you will definitely be able to retrieve it. I am not sure if the Kunlun mirror can contain the metal and earth magnetism. If it doesn't work, you can just turn back. As for I and the other fellow Taoists, we will wait here for Zimming, and then plan our next move." "Yes." Feng Wu and Taoist Lightning agreed when they heard this, and then they executed their respective spatial movement techniques, and tore space apart with the intention of flying away. However, Feng Wu had just torn space apart when she instantly felt something was off, and she withdrew her demon body from the space before crying out with shock. "Fellow Taoist, the spatial laws of Daybreak Continent are slightly strange." "It can't be." Xiaohua's heart sank as he looked at Huang Tong. Of course, Huang Tong already knew the difference in space from Feng Wu's comprehension, but Huang Tong still personally waved her claws, and her entire body sank into the space to take a look. At the same time, Xiaohua also released his divine sense. As expected, Xiaohua's expression changed slightly when his divine sense only extended for tens of thousands of miles. Within 100 miles, 1,000 miles, or even 10,000 miles, his divine sense was normal, but after 50,000 miles, the space actually folded. His divine sense seemed to be able to explore beyond 50,000 miles, but in reality, his divine sense had already been distorted by the folded space, and could not reach beyond 50,000 miles. If not for Xiaohua's body condensed from the laws, it would not have been easy to discover. Damn it! When Xiaohua discovered it, Huang Tong also flew out from the space, and cursed softly. This Daybreak Continent is indeed the so-called Lost Land. The spatial laws are different from Yilan Continent and the other 3 continents, and there is actually a spatial fault. Taoist which frowned. "That's not right. Daybreak Continent is a part of Yilan Continent, and Yilan Continent, and the other 3 continents have the same laws of heaven and earth. How can there be a spatial fault here?" Xiaohua looked towards the east and said thoughtfully, "If I'm not wrong, it should be because Daybreak Continent is the closest place to the Immortal Array, and the Immortal Array affected the laws of heaven and earth. If Daybreak Continent is like this, then it must be even more so in QC. There are even more spatial faults there. But it's fine." Huang Tong stopped in midair, and smiled. "Within the fault we can still use our spatial escape techniques, but every time we reach the border of the fault, we have to stop and escape from the void. and use ordinary flying techniques or teleportation techniques to cross the fault, and then use our spatial escape techniques again. So troublesome. Lightning Sage said unhappily. I was still thinking that we could reach Mingxi in a moment. Now we have to waste a lot of time. The spatial laws of this place are like this. Our strength cannot exceed the spatial laws. That's all we can do, Feng Wu said, and was about to fly away again. But Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat, and said, Fellow Daoist, don't be anxious. What? Feng Wu listened, and looked at Xiaohua in confusion. With a thought, Xiaohua invited Demon Lord Shi out of the space, and asked, How is Long Shenxi now? I'll let Big Brother know. Demon Lord Shi grinned and said, This guy just turned into a demon. That demon dragon bloodline is very powerful, and he doesn't want to give up his human form body, so he's in a deep sleep, waiting for the final fusion between his human form body and the demon dragon bloodline. Xiaohua frowned and said, Long Shenxi was originally at the peak of 9th grade essence energy. After turning into a demon, his strength must have exceeded 9th grade essence energy. He seems to be stronger than you. Che. Demon Lord Shi curled his lips and said, Big Brother doesn't know, little brother has a demon body. My strength is limited in the human realm, but when I reach the demon realm, how can I compare to 10th grade essence energy? Also, the demon emperors and demon lords in the demon realm are not comparable to 8th and 9th grade essence energy. Long Shenxi is at most a low-level demon lord. He's far from little brother. That's good. Xiaohua nodded. Big Brother is afraid that you won't be able to control Long Shenxi, and will cause trouble for us. Don't worry. Demon Lord Shi patted his chest and guaranteed. Just leave this to little brother. And Big Brother called you out today because there's something I need you and Feng Wu to do. Xiaohua nodded and said, Hee, what are we going to do with 5th brother? Big Brother, please tell me. Demon Lord Shi happily asked. Xiaohua smiled and said, We've already reached Donrain continent. It's time to break the array. But Big Brother has a lot of karma to understand. I can't go for now. And you have the demon body of a demon spirit. You're naturally proficient in arrays. So Big Brother wants you and Feng Wu to help Big Brother take a look at the situation of the immortal array. What do you think? Haha. Well said. Demon Lord Shi laughed loudly. Isn't it just an array? Little brother is the best. Little brother will help Big Brother take a look. But you have to change a little. Don't disturb the human cultivators of Donrain continent. Xiaohua looked at Demon Lord Shi's arrogant demonic chi and smiled. When Demon Venerable Shi heard this, he immediately retracted the demonic chi around his body. In just a moment, he turned into a slightly sallow Xiaohua. Alright. That's it. Xiaohua nodded in satisfaction. You're from the demon race. Maybe you don't understand the situation of the human race. Listen to Feng Wu. Xiaohua's words were like he was talking to an ignorant child, but Demon Lord Shi felt at ease after hearing it. He smiled and said, Big Brother, don't worry, I'll listen to 5th brother. Alright, go. Xiaohua waved his hand. Feng Wu brought Demon Lord Shi and tore through the void. Lightning Immortal also cupped his hands towards Xiaohua, and then headed towards Mingxi. After Feng Wu, Demon Lord Shi and Lightning Immortal left, Huang Tong felt strange and said in a low voice, Dao friend, why don't you ask Maitreya Buddha to come out? No matter what, he's the future Buddha Lord. He must be able to sense Mount Meru. Xiaohua looked at Huang Tong, who was a phoenix dharma body, and knew that although he had more experience than him, he had more intrigue in the Xianyuan space, and lacked the patience of the human race, so he smiled and said, Maitreya Buddha is the future Buddha Lord, and he will soon be received by the West to enter the Buddha kingdom. I can't delay his cultivation because of this. I can't sow discord between him and the Buddha kingdom. Moreover, I was born in Donrain continent. Didn't you hear Ziming talk about it? Donrain continent already has a fortune gate that worships Tao Master Xiao. In the past, I planted a lot of grain and millet seeds in Donrain continent and Million Meng Mountains. Because of the existence of the immortal array, the power of faith of these hundreds of years has been accumulated. If we ask Maitreya Buddha to come out now, the power of faith alone is enough for him to enter the Buddha kingdom. We still need Maitreya Buddha's wonderful tree of 7 treasures to break the array, so we can't let him out now. Speaking of this, Xiaohua suddenly remembered something and said to Huang Tong, "By the way, fellow Taoist, I also promised to rescue Empress Xianwan of the demon realm. Although Yuanya can go alone, I'm still worried. Why don't you go?" "Of course." Huang Tong nodded. "There are many things in Donrain continent. Fellow Taoists can't handle it alone. I am willing to help. Let Dai and Yuanyao out, I'll take them with me." "Okay." Xiaohua was about to take out the Kunlun mirror, but he suddenly remembered that the Kunlun mirror had been taken away by the Thunder Immortal. He frowned and was about to pull Yuanya and Dai out of Shenhua continent. It was at this moment that Xiaohua's thoughts changed again and he shook his head. "No, you can't go." Huang Tong was surprised and asked, "Why can't I go?" P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate, and Chapter 50-45. Xiaohua sighed and said earnestly, "Xianwan's kindness to this poor Taoist is as heavy as a mountain. Although her matter seems very simple now, and even if Yuanya went over he could solve it, but this is not the way to resolve the cause and effect. To save Xianwan, this poor Taoist must go over personally." Huang Tong clapped her hands and said, "You're right. Although I am you and you are me, Xianwan doesn't know. She helped you in the past, and we have to repay her kindness. You have to go. However, if I go, she will have to suffer more in the formation." Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "This is also what I was thinking that day. After the matter of Million Meng Mountains is settled, we can just use the space escape technique." Huang Tong persuaded. "It won't take much time. Besides, Xianwan has been trapped in the formation for hundreds of years. She won't be able to sense it even if it takes a few more days." Xiaohua suddenly felt impatient. He looked into the distance and said, "Why hasn't Ziming come out yet? It's only been an hour." "Don't worry." Huang Tong looked at the silent Taoist witch and said. At this moment, Taoist witch suddenly raised his head and said to Xiaohua, "I will go and see if there are any traces of the Buddhist formation." "Thank you, Taoist." Xiaohua nodded and replied. Taoist witch's body swayed. He didn't use any space escape technique. He just flew slowly in the direction where he came from. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. Taoist witch didn't return, and Ziming didn't appear either. Xiaohua was already panicking in his heart. Now that he thought about what the Shaman King said in the space yesterday, Xiaohua vaguely understood the situation of the Shaman King and Ziming. Xiaohua understood that Ziming probably couldn't come out of the sealed space of the Buddhist formation. After another 3 days, Taoist witch returned. Xiaohua looked at Taoist witch and shook his head. "It's been 4 days. Huang Tong urged. "I'm afraid Ziming can't come out." Before Huang Tong finished, Xiaohua said, "No need to rush. Although the Shaman King said to wait for a day, Ziming treated me so well. I have to wait for 10 days. Huang Tong was silent. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Ziming still didn't appear. Forget it. Seeing that the afterglow of the setting sun had already disappeared into the distant sky, Xiaohua looked up at the sky and sighed. Looks like I won't be able to see Ziming again in this life. Let's go. Where are we going? Huang Tong asked knowingly. Xiaohua looked in a direction and said, "It's naturally the Huta stronghold. Ziming can't get out of the sealed space, but I must fulfill my promise to her. Moreover, this is the knot in her heart for the rest of her life. No matter what, I should be the one to solve it." All right. Huang Tong and Taoist sorcerer looked at each other and were about to move. Right at this moment, Xiaohua's figure shook. He stopped in disbelief and looked at Taoist shaman. Taoist shaman's face was also filled with wild joy as he cried out, "The new Shaman King has appeared. I have already sensed the change in the fate of the millions of Meng Mountains." Just as Taoist shaman finished speaking, countless lights shot up into the sky from the depths of the millions of Meng Mountains. Waves of strange ripples spread out like rings in the mountains. At the same time, a series of sizzling sounds came from the sky and the abyss. Amidst these sounds, the chanting of gods and ghosts surged out like waves, falling into the night and the starry sky. The originally dark starry sky suddenly became clear amidst these sounds. The stars were like bright lights, flashing desperately. The crescent moon that looked like a small boat also raised its sail, and a layer of halo floated high into the sky. The brilliance of the stars and moon was like a waterfall, illuminating the millions of Ming mountains. At a glance, it was almost as bright as day. However, in just a few breaths, the strange sounds came again. A huge black shadow rushed out from all over the millions of Ming mountains and landed in the sky, forming the shape of a human face and a dragon head. This black shadow blocked the brilliance of the stars and moon, and the millions of Ming mountains fell into darkness again. This is... Xiaohua was shocked. He sensed something and hurriedly looked at Taoist shaman. Taoist shaman narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, "Sure is finally leaving." "Damn it." Xiaohua cursed in a low voice. "The shaman king is gone. Doesn't that mean only Ziming is left in the sealed space?" "There's no other way." Taoist shaman shook his head and said, "Although I have a connection with the fate of soul cultivators, the shaman king has just entered the cycle of reincarnation and hasn't formed a flesh body. I can't sense the sealed space yet." "Fellow Taoist, calm down," Huang Tong hurriedly said. "Even if we can sense the sealed space, we can't go there now. In the sealed space, even if we join forces, we won't be a match for the formation spirit of Mount Meru." The darkness was still darkness, even darker than Xiaohua's eyes. However, this darkness couldn't stop the hope in Xiaohua's eyes. He nodded slowly and said, "I know. I just want to look in Ziming's direction and wait for her for one more night." Ew. At this moment, there seemed to be the wails of soul beasts in the millions of Ming mountains, one after another. The black shadow that covered the sky seemed to turn its head in the wind and take a deep look at the millions of Ming mountains in the dark night. Then it slowly extended into the sky. Rumble. All of a sudden, the sky turned fiery red. Tens of thousands of shooting stars appeared out of nowhere. These shooting stars were crimson red, and they looked like burning clouds as they floated above the millions of Ming mountains. The movement of their movement was like the rumbling of thunder. Then the whistling sound was heard again. All the meteors dragged their fiery red tails and swayed as they fell from the sky. They turned into a meteor shower and passed through the black shadow with a human face and a dragon tail, landing all over the millions of Ming mountains. Roar, roar, roar. The roar of the soul beast could be heard once again, and it was filled with excitement. As for the black shadow that was the size of Ming mountains, it was riddled with holes by the meteor shower. Streams of starlight once again pierced through the black shadow and landed on the mountain range. Heaven and earth sacrifice. Taoist witch muttered to himself, "The witch king has fallen. The sky sacrifices with the stars, and the earth sacrifices with the soul beasts. Sad, sad." As Taoist witch muttered to himself, the black shadow had turned into black cotton. It drifted down and dissipated. The moonlight dimmed, the sky lost its color, and the mountains fell silent. In the end, the entire world fell into darkness again. This darkness was so deep, just like Xiaohua's lonely and cold heart. In the darkness, Xiaohua seemed to hear the cries of the millions of Ming mountains. The mountains were also mourning, and the people were also choking. The night would eventually pass, just like the passing of an era. The next day, the sky was still gray and there was no morning sun. In the mountains, the birds were not as chirping as before. It was very quiet. Xiaohua looked around and felt a little sad. He sighed and said, "Fellow Taoists, let's go." After saying that, Xiaohua moved and flew toward the Huta village without using the spatial escape technique. Taoist witch and Huang Tong knew that Xiaohua was in a bad mood, so they didn't say much and followed behind. "Fellow Taoist." Suddenly, Xiaohua said, "What should we do when we are alive?" Huang Tong was stunned. She looked at Taoist witch and hurriedly nodded. "Fellow Taoist is right. Even if a mayfly is born, it can see the dawn and dusk. If you see the epiphyllum for a moment, you can also leave your fragrance in the world. But some people are suppressed in the sealed space for the rest of their lives because of what they want to do. They can't even take a step out." Xiaohua said faintly. "I can't imagine that the shaman king could be so patient." Taoist witch nodded. "Not only him, but also many shaman kings before him. and their lives are far from what ordinary mortals can compare to. Mortals can endure for 100 years, but they have to endure for tens of thousands of years, because they have their own beliefs. Huang Tong agreed. This belief is more tenacious than any power. Fellow Taoist, think about the tens of thousands of years we spent in the heavenly prison. Isn't it the same? If it weren't for the concern of family and the fortune gate, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to endure for so long, right? So fellow Taoist sacrifice is no less than others. Taoist which continued, fellow Taoist always thinks about others, but neglects yourself. Seeing is big, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is big. Anyone is an ant in front of the heavenly Tao. Xiaohua's face showed a bitter smile. Being small in the heart doesn't necessarily mean it is small. Only by being humble can one improve. Fellow Taoist, didn't you see that even Taoist Master Jin Sheng, a supreme cultivator of the Heavenly Alliance, was also possessed by the Devil Clan? Although Taoist is 1 foot tall, the Devil Clan is 10 feet tall. But if he has a humble heart, the Devil Clan won't be able to invade him, right? The Shaman King has passed away, but Shaman Wang Ming is coming. Taoist which laughed. Without loss, how can there be hope? Fellow Taoist, cheer up. Your descendant has already formed a body in the Yilin continent. When he returns to the Wuming mountain range, it will be the beginning of a new era for soul cultivators. Even if Ziming can't come out now, but with Shaman Wang Ming, in 100 years, she will regain her freedom, right? That's right, that's right. Xiaohua also forced a smile. Since Ziming can't come out, I can't make this matter clear, and I can't wait until then. Today, I might as well give Shaman Wang Ming a surprise. However, just as Xiaohua said this, his mood improved a bit. When he released his divine sense, his expression suddenly changed. Xiaohua looked in a certain direction and angrily roared, "Damn thing!" Then Xiaohua's body shook and he teleported to that place. Following Xiaohua were thunderbolts that condensed in the sky. It happened so suddenly that Huang Tong and Taoist which were caught off guard. However, when they looked at that place, they couldn't help but show surprise on their faces. Almost at the same time, they shrugged and said in unison, "This guy is simply looking for death. He's here to make fun of you." Then the two of them teleported over as well. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and Chapter 5046. It was a rather large abyss, and the walls to the left were covered with vines unique to millions of Meng mountains. Dewdrops that looked like tears were flowing on the vines, and a thick fog shrouded the entire abyss. Ordinary eyes would not be able to see through this fog. It was even more impossible to see the dewdrops on the vines, and the reddish-brown mountain rocks beneath the dewdrops. Asterisk whoosh, asterisk a soft sound of air breaking came from above the abyss, and a peerless beauty in plain clothes flew past in a daze. Wasn't that Wuxia? Although Wuxia's current appearance was not as stunning as her original appearance, the faint glow set off her delicate and pretty face, and she still gave off a peerless aura. Even if some people's extraordinariness was concealed, they would still stand out like an all. And Wuxia was as usual. What? How did this happen? Wuxia looked a little flustered, and she thought to herself, how did the Shaman King suddenly fall? Could it be that something happened to Xiaolang? Could it be that something happened to the new Shaman King as well? Wuxia might not care about the fall of the Shaman King, but she definitely cared about the birth of Shaman King Ming. The direction Wuxia was flying in was naturally where the Buddhist formation was sealed. Although she had left the Buddhist formation a long time ago, she still missed it and did not stray too far away. When she noticed the strange phenomenon in millions of Meng mountains, even if she was from the Fox clan, even if she was from the Qingqiu clan, she still could not let go of the kinship that flowed in her blood. She could not help but fly back. However, just as Wuxia flew past the abyss, there was a loud bang, and dozens of fiery red chains shot out from the abyss like pythons. Not only did they block Wuxia's path forward, they also sealed off her path of retreat. The flames on the chains turned blackish red, and they flickered like the fangs of a venomous snake. Near the flames, the void was slightly distorted, as if it had been burned through by the flames. Ah! Wuxia immediately woke up from her daze. Without thinking, her body swayed. Not only did she not retreat, she also did not rush up into the sky. Instead, her body sank and fell towards the bottom of the abyss. However, before Wuxia's figure disappeared into the bottom of the abyss, she flew out in a panic. At the bottom of the abyss, a huge silver wolf totem flashed and appeared. The wolf head on the wolf totem seemed to be alive. In its bloody mouth, white wolf fangs flashed with a cold light. Boom! At this moment, dozens of chains rapidly intersected above Wuxia's head, emitting rumbling sounds. Flashing silver runes appeared at the top of the chains. These runes gave birth to a powerful binding force that enveloped Wuxia like a heavenly net. Of course, Wuxia wouldn't just sit there and wait for death. She opened her mouth, and a gust of wind suddenly appeared. A huge gust of wind rushed into the sky, trying to break through the net. Unfortunately, although the wind was able to support the heavenly net, and even extinguish most of the flames, the silver rune was like a rock in the wind, unshakable. Damn it! This is a talisman from the immortal realm of the human race. Wuxia suddenly understood, and couldn't help but curse under her breath. Her hands formed a seal, and a light green demon aura rushed up, barely holding up the chains. She shouted, "I wonder which senior from the immortal realm has descended to the mortal world? Why are you blocking my path here?" A burst of laughter sounded from the abyss far away. Then the silver wolf transformed into its demon form, and landed in front of Wuxia. It mocked. "If a senior from the immortal realm came, would you still be able to stand here safely?" Seeing the silver wolf appear, Wuxia's face was filled with surprise. She asked curiously, "Where are you from? Why are you blocking me here?" "Haha, you cunning little fox. Don't you see the totem of my snow wolf clan?" The snow wolf laughed and said mockingly, "Do I have to tell you that I came from the 10,000 demon realm? Did my snow wolf king send me to capture you?" "Snow wolf king?" Wuxia's expression tightened. She hurriedly looked around and exclaimed, "Could it be that the snow wolf king can also enter the Dawn Rain continent? That's strange." The snow wolf looked at Wuxia with a strange expression on his face. He said curiously, "The Fox clan has always been cunning and cautious. That day my snow wolf king chased you for 1,000,000 miles and still couldn't capture you. But today you were so careless. Not only did you not discover my Yuan Shen, you didn't even explore this dangerous abyss and hurriedly flew past. Haha, so that's how it is." At this point, the snow wolf suddenly realized something and laughed. "You actually gave birth to a descendant in the lost land. No wonder your divine ability was greatly reduced. It was caused by a great loss of vitality. Otherwise, with my methods, how could I capture you?" Snow wolf. Wuxia's face was pale. She couldn't stand steadily in the air. She whispered, "I have escaped into the Dawn Rain continent for nearly 1,000 years. I think you have followed me here for 1,000 years. To be honest, I only offended the Snow Wolf King because of some small grudges. After 1,000 years, I think she has already forgotten about it." Unfortunately, before Wuxia could finish, the Snow Wolf laughed and said, "Little fox, don't say any more. All of this is a waste of your effort. Since the Snow Wolf King sent me to capture you, how can I return empty-handed? Besides, how do you know that I almost lost my life in order to find your trace? If I can't capture you, I'll be letting myself down." After speaking, the Snow Wolf didn't waste any more words with Wuxia. He opened his mouth, and a mouthful of demonic chi fell into the chain. Boom! The chain fell down like a flood dragon, wanting to firmly bind Wuxia. Wuxia was shocked. She gritted her teeth. Woo! She opened her mouth and a fist-sized demonic pill flew out. This demonic pill fell into the air. The light and shadow swayed and turned into the illusion of a six-tailed fox. At the same time, thousands of illusions were born in the illusion. They overlapped like waves surging towards the snow wolf. When the snow wolf saw the illusion, a silver light flashed in his eyes and his expression became sluggish. Unfortunately, just as the illusion was about to break through the chain, Kachacha, silver lightning swarmed from the chain like a swarm of bees. The talismans that were as thin as ants surged out and shattered the illusion. Ayo. The little fox on top of the demonic pill howled, and shrank back into the demonic pill. The silver light in the snow wolf's eyes also disappeared. The snow wolf was still in shock and said, "Damn it." Then, with a wave of the snow wolf's hand, a fiery red chain sprang out from Jiuxia's back and turned into a long spear. Pooh! It pierced Jiuxia's collarbone. Ah! Jiuxia cried out in pain. Her charming body went limp in midair. The demonic pill's brilliance dimmed and fell into her mouth. Hee hee. Seeing the chain penetrate Jiuxia's body, the snow wolf knew that the situation was over. He couldn't help but laugh coldly. "Little fox, you really deserve to be unlucky. I just came from the Yilin continent to the Lost Lands and I already sensed your aura." Unfortunately, before the snow wolf could finish speaking, a spiritual will that was even more ferocious than a meteor came crashing down. The huge force not only trapped the snow wolf, but the chi wave also blocked the snow wolf's words. Who? The snow wolf was shocked. He hurriedly urged the chain to fly out, wanting to block the spiritual will. However, wherever the spiritual will passed, boom! A loud sound rang out, and the chain flew out like wild grass. Ka-cha-cha! At the same time, in the sky, the thunderclouds surged forward faster than the wind. 10 thick lightning bolts came crashing down from the sky, striking directly at the snow wolf. The snow wolf didn't dare to be slow. His body fell rapidly, and the wolf totem that was blocking Jiuxia's body shot up into the sky. Countless demonic chi and the power of the stars and moon surged out from the wolf's head, transforming into a huge wolf head that pounced towards the lightning bolts. Poo-pee-you. Where the lightning bolts landed, it was as if they had hit a broken piece of cotton. Not only was the wolf head destroyed, but after the wolf head was destroyed, the lightning bolts were like swords that ruthlessly struck the wolf totem. The unbreakable wolf totem in the eyes of the snow wolf instantly turned into fragments that floated down into the abyss. Roar! A furious roar sounded from afar. Amidst the rumbling of thunder, Xiaohua's figure arrived while stepping on thunder. "Xiaohua!" Jiuxia almost blurted out. However, before the sound came out, Jiuxia immediately suppressed it with all his might. Although his eyes were filled with ecstasy, he still clenched his teeth and didn't shout out. Seeing the bloodstains on Jiuxia's body, Xiaohua felt a burst of heartache for no reason. He roared, "Damn it! Even the Snow Wolf King was killed by this Xiao. You, a little snow wolf, dare to show off in front of this old man? If not for the fact that I couldn't see through your goal, this old man would have killed you in the Wuming Mountain range." As he spoke, Xiaohua waved his right hand. A big hand that was like thunder grabbed out. Under the big hand, the space around the snow wolf was imprisoned. The snow wolf couldn't even move. As the big hand fell, the snow wolf was caught in the big hand. Light and shadow flowed and demonic chi overflowed. The snow wolf was about to be crushed into meat paste by Xiaohua. "Xiao. Taoist Xiao? You are Taoist Xiao." Hearing this, the snow wolf couldn't help but be stunned. When he woke up he exclaimed, "Taoist Xiao, spare my life, Taoist Xiao. Brother-in-law." Seeing Xiaohua so powerful, Jiuxia was almost drunk. She moaned and said in a low voice, Let her go." "Oh." Xiaohua was stunned and looked at Jiuxia in disbelief. However, when Xiaohua saw Jiuxia's figure clearly, he was shocked again. His eyes revealed disbelief and a deep sense of loss, because he could see that Jiuxia's primordial yin had been lost. "Brother-in-law." Jiuxia's face showed shyness and shame. With a voice as low as a mosquito's, she said, "You can see it too. I just left my bloodline around Flowing Cloud Lake a month ago. Don't you humans always say that you have to accumulate good karma for your children? I'll spare her life for the sake of my descendants." Xiaohua frowned. Looking at this Jiuxia who was so beautiful that she left a deep impression in his mind. Even when he was having sex with Zi Ming, he asked in a low voice, "She is the snow wolf of the 10,000 demon realm. Are you sure you want to let her live?" P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward and thank all forms of support. Chapter 5047. Brother-in-law. Although Jiuxia's face was pale, Her charming smile was still charming. She said coquettishly, "Didn't I tell you before? There is something I need your help with. I thought you would only be able to help me after 100,000 years. I didn't expect that in just a few hundred years, you would be able to kill the great Saint Snow Wolf King. Without the Snow Wolf King, how could I be afraid of the Snow Wolf clan? This Snow Wolf was just following orders. If it wasn't for my weak body today, how could she have succeeded?" Xiaohua heard and suddenly understood. He thought for a moment and nodded. "So this is what you want me to do?" I thought. "Forget it. Since this is your choice, I will listen to you." With that, Xiaohua raised his hand and grabbed at the air. The fiery red chain slowly shrank under the thunder and was pulled out of Jiuxia's body. Streams of blood dripped down from Jiuxia's body and the chains. Xiaohua hurriedly took out a pill from the space and handed it to Jiuxia. "Take the pill first." Jiuxia smiled sweetly. "Brother-in-law, I am from the Fox clan. I can't take your human pill." "Don't worry." Huang Tong also flew over. Looking at this beautiful woman, she said lightly, "The pill that Taoist Xiao gave you was really refined for the demon clan." "Oh." Jiuxia was surprised. She took the pill and looked at Xiaohua strangely. "Brother-in-law, it has only been a few hundred years. You are actually so powerful. Moreover, you can refine pills for my demon clan?" After saying that, Jiuxia suddenly understood. She looked at Xiaohua and said, "I understand now. Brother-in-law has been stranded in the demon realm all these years. No wonder you could kill the Snow Wolf King. Io, that's not right. It has only been a few hundred years. How can brother-in-law be so powerful?" Jiuxia kept calling him brother-in-law. It was as intimate as when she was with Hong Xia Fairy. Xiaohua smiled and said, "We will talk about this later. Brother-in-law will give you a few small surprises." Jiuxia took the pill and clapped her hands. "Brother-in-law has given me enough surprises today. And to be able to see brother-in-law, I am also very surprised. I don't need any other surprises." Xiaohua's mood was slightly better. He turned to look at Snow Wolf, his eyes like lightning, looking at Xiaohua's aura that was similar to that of the Thunder God. How was it the same as before in the Yilan continent? Snow Wolf couldn't help but tremble as he begged, "Senior, please spare my life. Senior, please spare my life." Xiaohua said, "This old man has traveled with you for several years, so I've long known that you're a demon. The only reason we haven't eliminated you is because you've never harmed any human cultivators. However, you have violated this old man's greatest taboo today. You may be spared from death, but you cannot be spared from punishment." Jiuxia cried out in surprise, then her face turned solemn. She didn't dare to be negligent and immediately flashed with 9-colored light, revealing her 6-tailed fox form. She assumed a strange posture and allowed Xiaohua to transmit the Qingqiu lineage's inheritance into her mind. At the same time, circles of ripples turned into the shape of a fox and rippled in all directions. However, this ripple was blocked by the capital star array and couldn't leak out at all. It could only roar and brew within the array. After a full hour, the light around Jiuxia slowly retracted into her body. She then opened her eyes, which were filled with absolute fanaticism and an indescribable realization. Jiuxia transformed into her human form and respectfully knelt on the ground, kowtowing. "Jiuxia greets the Sacred King." "Sacred King?" Xiaohua was stunned and hurriedly helped Jiuxia up, saying, "This Xiao is just Xiaohua, not some sacred king. This is your Qingqiu lineage's inheritance. This Xiao is just returning it to you with the hand of heaven." Jiuxia stood up, the respect on her face completely gone. She then smiled faintly. "This little sister won't mention this anymore. You'll know in the future. However, this little sister has a small request that I hope brother-in-law can agree to." "Say it." Xiaohua nodded. "As long as it's not too difficult for me, I'll agree to it." Xiaohua's words had a double meaning, but the sourness in his heart was real. After all, this peerless woman in front of him had already left her bloodline in Million Meng Mountains before he returned to Dawn Rain Continent. Thinking back to Jiuxia's little flirtation with him back then, it was impossible for Xiaohua not to feel a little disappointed. Jiuxia was so sharp. Seeing Xiaohua like this, She felt sweetness and joy in her heart. However, her face still blushed. She lowered her head and said, "Brother-in-law, this little sister knows that the love between you and big sister is stronger than gold. Although this little sister has some small expectations for you, this little sister is afraid that big sister will think too much. Brother-in-law has been gone for many years without any news." This little sister thought that she would never see brother-in-law again. Xiaohua's words had a double meaning, but Jiuxia's words were naked. Of course, it was this kind of naked that covered up the truth of the matter. The entire scene became awkward in an instant. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand, saying, "Jiuxia, you're thinking too much. Is that so?" Jiuxia raised her head. The pair of big watery eyes on her charming face were incomparably alluring. She seemed to be asking a question, but also seemed to be talking to herself. She murmured, "Brother-in-law didn't think too much?" Cough cough. Xiaohua didn't dare to look at Jiuxia anymore. He hurriedly turned his face and coughed a few times, asking, That brother-in-law, who is it?" P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support. Vote for a monthly vote. Vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank all forms of support. Brother-in-law will naturally know the secrets of this item in the future. Xiaohua originally didn't want to take it, but after hearing Jiuxia's words, he nodded solemnly and said, "Brother-in-law knows. I won't let anyone else see it." "That's right, even big sister can't do it." Jiuxia blinked mischievously and smiled. "This is a little secret between me and brother-in-law." "Haha, brother-in-law knows." Xiaohua nodded and kept Xingyu. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Brother-in-law just came back from Yilan continent, I wonder." Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish speaking, Jiuxia's face also showed an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, brother-in-law. Little sister also has a lot of things to do." After parting with brother-in-law that day, other than asking sword cultivators to inquire about brother-in-law's whereabouts, I didn't pay attention to sword cultivators and Dao cultivators anymore. Little sister also doesn't know how big sister is now. "All right." Xiaohua nodded and said helplessly, "After brother-in-law is done, I'll go find her." "Ah." Jiuxia said curiously, "Why is brother-in-law going after you're done? Could it be that brother-in-law has something important to do?" Hearing this, Xiaohua's heart moved and he nodded. "That's right, brother-in-law does have something important that needs your help." "Ah, you need my help?" Jiuxia was even more stunned and hurriedly asked, "Brother-in-law, quickly say it." Xiaohua didn't hide much from Jiuxia, and told her about his experience, and the matters of the 3 continents. Hearing this, the little fox's heart shook. She didn't expect Xiaohua to have such a fortuitous encounter, and even more didn't expect that at the end of the sea, there was an immortal formation that no one would have thought of. Moreover, on the other side of the immortal formation, hundreds of millions of lives were already in danger, and the entire 3 continents had already fallen into an apocalyptic disaster. Brother-in-law. Jiuxia didn't need Xiaohua to say more and immediately nodded. Little sister understands. Although little sister hasn't contacted sword cultivators for a long time, little sister still has some influence over there. Speaking up to hear, Jiuxia was a little sad and said in a low voice, "Actually, little sister doesn't need to do anything. Brother-in-law is now the supreme of the human race. As long as he calls out, who would dare to disobey?" Xiaohua smiled and said, "Brother-in-law has never dared to have too many extravagant hopes for people's hearts. After all, the 3 continents aren't Daybreak Continent. The cultivators of Daybreak Continent won't take the Confucian cultivators, Buddhist sect, and demon race of the 3 continents seriously. Therefore, brother-in-law still hopes that you can help brother-in-law. However, before you help brother-in-law, you'd better take care of your body first. This matter has already reached the final step." However, when she took the blood bead and saw a 9-tailed fox's shadow inexplicably changing inside the blood bead, she couldn't help but cry out in shock. 9 nine-tailed fox bloodline? This, How is this possible? Brother-in-law went to the legacy realm. Xiaohua said proudly, when I saw this bloodline I thought of you. Brother-in-law. Xiao. Jiuxia's body trembled. She didn't care about the falling immortal peach and flew over while shouting, You're really too good to me. Cough cough. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and blocked her. Looking at Jiuxia's pink face and red lips, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with a dry mouth, It's nothing. You and I are a family. Brother-in-law should do something for you. No. The more Xiaohua acted like this, the more Jiuxia wanted to take advantage of him. She said coquettishly, You must give me a kiss. Otherwise this little sister will feel apologetic. Brother-in-law is really too good to me. Go. Facing Jiuxia's coquettishly pouting, Xiaohua suddenly felt that he had some resistance. He couldn't help but feel a sense of pride from the bottom of his heart. He waved his hand and said, If your sister knew, she would be angry. Hee. Jiuxia smiled faintly as if she saw a little rooster that she could secretly eat. She stopped and asked, Brother-in-law, this little sister won't ask about other things. That Princess Zixia that you mentioned just now. Xiaohua was dumbstruck. He looked at Jiuxia and shouted in the same inconceivable way. You, I didn't say anything. Brother-in-law. Jiuxia turned a blind eye and said with a smile, Do you want to hide the matters of men from us women? Even if you didn't say anything, how could we not know? Damn it. Xiaohua cursed in a low voice. Like a defeated rooster he drooped his head. Even Jiuxia could see through it with a glance. How could Fairy Hongxia not see through it? Although Xiaohua didn't intend to hide anything, seeing this situation, he was also quite disheartened. Hee brother-in-law. Looking at such a cute Xiaohua, Jiuxia rolled her eyes and said, How about this, Yua? Don't be in a hurry to find sister. First, you should clarify the matters of the 3 continents. After you have some clues, you can go find sister to discuss it, and tell her everything about Princess Zixia. Perhaps sister is dissatisfied with you, but seeing you rushing about for the sake of the billions of people in the 3 continents, she wouldn't blame you too much, right? After her anger subsides and the immortal formation is broken, Fairy Hongxia and Princess Zixia will also meet. Wouldn't that be perfect? What do you think? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support. Vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank you for all forms of support. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.